Kelsey, just calling you in. You ready? All right, thank you. I think yours is different.
Well, good, it doesn't make me so bad then.
No, yours is different. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting, the October 28th, 2024, the Marine Resources Commission to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Associate Member Branscombe, followed by invocation by Associate Member Preston.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Father God, we come before you this morning, God. We are, one, eternally grateful for your gift through your Son, Jesus Christ, and the responsibility that you've entrusted us all as far, and in the gift that you gave us as far as having dominion over all of your creation. God, I just pray that we represent you and we execute your will, and that truly, that's all that we truly desire is your will. We thank you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Welcome, everybody. Before we get started, I would like to take a moment to recognize a couple of our VMRC family members, or a VMRC family member and another member that was partners with us from VIMS that we've lost recently. I'm not real good at this, so y'all just kind of work with me. This is probably the one thing I'm the worst at. So, and that being said, we recently lost a good friend here at VMRC, Lewis Gillingham, a man who brought so much to this agency and to each of us personally. Lewis was a fixture here for nearly 4 decades. And in his passion for the Chesapeake Bay and its fisheries shaped not only his career, but the heart of our organization here and everybody that worked here and everybody he worked with. As the Virginia Saltwater Game Fish Coordinator, Lewis was a true advocate for the waters and the people who enjoy them. His love for the outdoors, for fishing, and the beauty of the bay was something he carried with him in everything he did. He made it look effortless. It was part of who he was. Because for Lewis, this wasn't just work, it was a calling. What made Lewis truly special was not just his dedication, but the way he shared that passion with all of us and everyone he came in contact with. He never hesitated to stop to chat, and we all know, Lewis, when you got in a conversation with him, you better not be in a hurry to get away. And whether you were talking about work or fishing or life in general, Lewis had a way of making those moments feel meaningful. I know I had several conversations with him about what types of fish were worthy of eating and what were not. So we had some good banter back and forth. He was kind, thoughtful, and always ready with a story or a smile. His presence brought light and warmth to all of us and everyone that came in contact with him. Though Lewis is no longer with us, the impact he had will remain. His love for the bay, his dedication to conservation, and his genuine care for people will continue to inspire us. As we move forward, let us remember to carry a little bit of that same spirit into our own work and lives. That being said, we also lost Mike Osterling and from VIMS. And I'm not prepared to say many words on that, but what I would say is Mike was a pioneer, and he helped anybody that had a shedding operation for peelers in the 80s and 90s. He was the backbone of that and developing that program. A staple in the industry and on the bay as well. So with that being said, let's take a moment of silence to honor Lewis and Mike's life and their contributions that brought joy to so many of us. Amen. Thank you all. All right. Lisa, let the record reflect that Mr. Hand is not present. Associate Member Hand is not present. All right, so welcome to the October 28, 2024 meeting of the Virginia Marine Resources Commission. The first thing I have is the approval of the agenda. Are there any corrections, deletions, or changes from the commission members or staff to the current agenda? So I see, we good, Randy? Agenda good?
Motion to approve as submitted.
I got a motion to approve the agenda for Mr. Erskine, a second for Mr. Branson. Any further discussion? Is there anyone that opposes this? All right, motion carries unanimously. All right, minutes. Are there any corrections, deletions, or changes from the commission members or staff for the September 24th, 2024 commission meeting minutes? Any corrections, deletions, or changes? Don't have that. So commission members, any corrections, deletions, or changes? That being said, we had two members that weren't present, so I have Ms. Kellum abstains and Mr. White abstains. Other than that,
Motion to approve.
okay, got a motion to approve from Mr. Hadley,
Second.
a second from Ms. Edwards. Is there any further discussion for the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. I will swear in VMRC staff and VIMs that will be speaking or presenting testimony during the meeting today. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. All right, Randy, you have the floor.
Commissioner, members of the commission, good morning. We have 3 page 2 items today. Item 2A, Riverport LLC is requesting authorization to mechanically or hydraulically dredge up to 131,400 cubic yards of state-owned land to depth of minus 44 feet at Pier 14, minus 38 feet around Pier 15, and minus 61 feet within the dry dock between Piers 14 and 15 with future maintenance dredging cycles as needed. Disposal at Craney Island or an approved upland facility. You're going to additionally install 2 mooring dolphins at the commercial facility located along the James River at 1201 Terminal Avenue in City of Newport News. We're recommending approval with a dredging royalty of $78,840 for the new dredging of 131,400 cubic yards of new material. Item 2B, Middlesex County is requesting authorization to mechanically or hydraulically dredge up to 123,550 cubic yards of state-owned submerged land, minus 10 feet, including future maintenance cycles as necessary from the Broad Creek Federal Channel with disposal at a previously approved upland facility at Middlesex County. Recommended approval contingent on separation of the silty dredge material situated adjacent to the existing marina from the balance of the sandy dredge material. Item 2C, the Norfolk Naval Shipyard is requesting authorization to construct 180 linear feet of temporary steel cofferdam, 180 linear feet of temporary turbidity curtain, a 180-foot by 8-foot permanent concrete trimming seal slab at minus 46 feet mean low water, all placed channelward of the existing infrastructure to support a broader reconstruction of Dry Dock 3, serving the Norfolk Naval Shipyard on the southern branch in the city of Portsmouth. And that's all I have, sir.
Is there any questions for Randy from the commission? Thank you, Randy. Appreciate you. Is there anyone in the audience as an applicant or representative of the applicant in these projects here and wish to speak on them? Is there anyone that wants to speak on any of these projects in the audience? At all, for or against? All right, that being said, matters before the commission.
Motion
Move to approve page 2 items.
Got a motion to approve page 2 items from Mr. Branson. Do I got a second? Got a second from Mr. Headley. Any further discussion? All right, that being said, is there anyone in opposition to this approved motion? The second motion? No? That being said, motion carries unanimously. All right. Next, so we have no consent items. Number 4, Kelsey, I'm gonna go ahead and assume we don't need a closed session for consultation today.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Randy, you're up again, number 5.
Good morning. GPYC Holdings is requesting authorization to install a series of 8-foot wide floating docks at their existing private use club known as the Gatlin Point Yacht Club Marina, adjacent 903 Gatlin Point Parkway, Along the Pagan River in Ottawa County, the docks will additionally accommodate 5 transient boat slips. The project is protested by an adjacent property owner. In fact, we have a second protest that's come in. Project is located near the mouth of the Pagan River, near its confluence with the James River in Isle of Wight County. The pier shown here from an aerial perspective was constructed and permitted in 1987. They currently have 70 wet slips. They're asking, and you see the hatching, to construct a series of 8-foot wide floating docks on the interior of the L-head pier. It'll be to accommodate canoeing, kayaking, paddleboarding, youth sailing lessons, and 5 transient slips that would lay on the inside of those floating docks. The project is protested by Mr. Carroll Keene, who you see his home pictured there. He has the 2 vacant lots on either side of him. We also have a letter, I think it came in Thursday, I believe, with an additional protest from one of the property owners within the subdivision, Thomas Adams. Mr. Keene's objections relate to the additional noise from boats and late night activities he thinks will occur with these new floating docks, adverse impacts to the neighborhood and private property values. He believes this proposal will limit his ability to construct a private pier from one of his, or all 3 of his 3 lots there in the future. And he has recommended shifting the floating docks to the eastern side of the marina. The piers the floating docks would come out here and get about halfway to that gazebo and turn and come across, as you see the laser pointer. Now I'm looking where that floating dock would come down and turn on 90 and come through here. And this would be the interior side of the floating docks. This is a view of the existing marina from Mr. Keene's property, so that floating dock would come down here and turn in here. Regarding Mr. Keene's comments about the potential for private piers from his property, when we permitted this facility in 1987, Condition 17, which is at the top of the screen, required conformance with a court-recorded deed restriction that is still in effect today for all the Gatling Point properties, which prohibits private docks and piers from anything other than the community property where the pier sits, and that deed restriction is on the screen as well. The proposed floats will encroach into the lease of Battery Park Fish and Oyster Company, but they have obtained the written consent from that leaseholder. Our deputy chief, Justin Roll, has been out there on a number of occasions with both parties attempting to find, a compromise. He discussed with the yacht club Mr. Keene's request that they shift the floating docks to the east of the facility. But given the fetch coming out of the James, ultimately the yacht club is asking you to support what they have before you today. The Health Department's Marina Program and Shellfish Sanitation have found the project to be acceptable, and the Corps of Engineers has approved it. So we are the final permitting authority that they're waiting on. So I'm going to move into the summary. I also have 5 additional letters of support that came in after the package was prepared for you guys. Thank you, Gerald. In summary, the proposed floating dock addition appears to be a reasonable expansion to the existing marina facility, especially to grant additional floating docks for youth sailing and boating opportunities to offer easier recreational access. The proposed 5 transient slips appear to be a minimal footprint addition to the overall existing marina. Had this not been protested, we would have been recommending approval administratively. We are sensitive to the protestants' concerns, especially given the proximity to the marina. We don't feel that the additional use of waterway or impact is unreasonable. The proposal appears to be within the riparian rights of the yacht club, and the navigational access to the new floating docks will be no different than what's already used to get into the interior of the slips now. We do agree with the applicant's position that moving the floats to the east would subject them to a heavy fetch out of the James River. Therefore, after evaluating the merits of the project and after considering all the factors contained in 22-1205 of the Code of Virginia, we'll recommend approval as submitted with a royalty of $5,064 for the total encroachment of 3,376 square feet at a rate of $1.50 per square foot, and a permit condition that no overnight mooring be allowed in the transient slip area. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Branson?
Yes, thank you, Chief Owen. The, no overnight, is that to mean from sunset to sunrise?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Any
Is
more
this
que-
new addition, is it open to the public or just the yacht club members?
Yacht Club members, sir.
And you mentioned that there was a motion to put it on the east side of the pier. What was the negative of that?
And they're here to speak to that. The fetch to the east is significant, looking out to James. So they fear that, you know, with the fetch coming in out of James, that putting it over here would just, ooh, my screen went dark, would subject the floating docks to heavier, you know, wave and tide.
Any more questions for
This-
Bill?
In this area here.
That means- Thank you, Randy. Is the applicant or representative of the applicant here and wish to speak on this matter at this time? Please come forward. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state your name in the microphone for the record.
Gordon Holloway.
Proceed.
When we first initiated and launched our youth sailing camp, it became apparent that we had an issue safely getting these kids off of the existing dock out into the main channel. As a result of that, we decided that we had access to some floating docks that we had purchased, and we decided to pursue this application as stated. This will allow the kids, and also our members, to have much safer access to the water in an area that's protected. And I know Mr. Keene and some protesters thought the other side would be better for them, but anytime you have a northeasterly or easterly wind, you'll see that it's very rough over there, and floating docks are highly subjected to wave activity. In our opinion, makes that just a non-feasible option. Again, these slips are specific to our private membership. We do not have public access to our facility. These are for guests, the children, and our members who want easy access for the canoes, kayaks, paddleboards, et cetera. So it's, in my opinion, pretty straightforward that we're just trying to give our members added benefit and amenity.
Is there any questions? Mr. Branson?
Yes, sir, Mr. Holloway. I noticed on the drawings that you have a wave break, and you can't see it on here, but on the very top right, that extends easterly toward the mouth of the Pagan River.
That is
on
correct.
The diagram up there. And the wave break is there, but not on the walkway adjacent to where those floating piers would be. So what kind of break from the fetch are you gonna get if you put that floating pier on the inside? You don't have any break, any wave break.
The existing easterly break from the northeasterly fully protects that whole section,
Yeah, it's all.
as well as the fixed pier that's already established there. If you were to look at a overhead of the area, you could see that from the,
Chief Owen, can you get us the picture up here for you?
yeah, thank you.
Sure. Here it is.
Yes, there you go. So the northeast direction is where a lot of our negative wave activity comes from. As you can see, it would directly stop the majority of the wave activity on the inside. It's directly northeast of where the proposal is.
And last question, Commissioner, if I may. And these transit slips are for day use only?
Yes, they're for members that have boats but do not have slips. They can come and visit the club when
Okay,
they're out
not
on
for
the water.
transients coming in upriver,
We're
whatever.
we're not open to the public. It's for members only, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, sir.
Any more questions for the speaker? Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this item? Please come forward. Raise your hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name for the record.
Bessie Cameron.
Proceed.
Yes. I am the Outdoor Activities Director for Gatling Point Yacht Club, and I helped organize our camps for the last 2 years, our sailing camp, and this year we added more sailing, intermediate sailing, and kayaking, canoeing, stand-up paddleboarding, as well as a waterman's camp where we had the VMRC come and talk about the junior angling program with the state of Virginia. Also teach them about safety and respecting the water. And we've just really been able to expand our programs. However, we need more space and we need a safe space, because many times we can explain sailing, but getting out into the water and taking off in a little sailboat is a lot different than just seeing it and hearing it on paper or on a whiteboard. So that area is very protected compared to the other side. So if you look at it, if you put the dock over on the northeast side, or where that red dot is, and it extended out that way, then you've got a lot of wind, you've got a lot of waves and current. It's just not ideal for our program. Also, without having the docks on the left side, we don't have that sort of sheltered, calm place to get in and let them get a easy start to sailing and boating. Also, we hope to be able to store a few of them there just temporarily during the season, so that we don't have to carry them or all the way out to the end of the dock, or leave boats out there in the way. It's really crowded, and so rigging is a problem where we are right now. When we get out there to try to teach them to rig, everybody's spread out around private boats, and the wind can whip up and take a sail and a boom right into a very expensive yacht. So it'd be nice to have a little space to teach and to get them in there sailing, and we just want to be able to pass on to the generations to come the love of the water and the safety. And so thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you. Is there any questions for the speaker?
Can you go back to the slide that shows the dock itself
Andy?
on there? So do you launch from both the north and the south side of that floating dock?
What, the one that's proposed, or right now?
The one that's proposed, or will you launch?
We could launch on either side of it, depending on the tide. Sometimes when the tide is out, it's too low to be on the inside, or between the dock and land. So it's a little deeper on the boat side of it.
How deep's the water there?
It varies from, he probably knows exactly.
1 second, we have that slide. It looks like it's about anywhere from 2 to 3 feet on the inbound side towards the shore, and it on the interior of the slip going towards the main L-head. It begins at 3.5 and goes from that to 4 to 5 foot. Here's your 4-foot contour right here. This is the 3.5-foot contour, and this is the 3-foot contour right here. And this is the -2-foot contour.
Is there enough room, if you launch on the north side of the pier, is there enough room between that and a boat backing out on the existing pier that they don't conflict with each other?
Right. We haven't had any problems before over there, and I think there's enough room, yes, where the poles are that show where it's going to be. so. Our biggest boats are docked over on the other side, on the slips, on the east or north side. So, where they were wanting us to move it, the bigger boats are over there, the smaller boats are on this side. So I don't see it being a problem launching there. There seems to be pretty good space.
Any more questions for the speaker? Thank you, ma'am. Gerald? Please remove your cover when you're addressing the commission, please. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name for the record, please.
Nick Hess.
Proceed.
So I'm one of the owner-operators with Gordon Holloway on this project, and I hit yes on there, but Gordon already spoke for us, so I just wanted to come up and see if he has any additional questions for us. Bessie hit it on the head. I mean, it's really that's all of our smaller slips on that whole side. So they're all small boats coming out that way. So there's no, and I believe I think it's 65 or 35 feet coming out from there. So there's plenty of room for the backing out. These are all little small, the FJs for the sailboats for the kids. So there's plenty of room for them to get in and out.
Any questions for the speaker? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Gerald, anyone else? Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record. The microphone.
My name is Diana Keene.
Proceed.
My husband's under the weather today, Carol Keene, so he's not able to be here. We live in Gatlin Point. Our home overlooks the marina. My husband and his late wife purchased one of the first lots sold in Gatlin Point development. He's lived there for 33 years. I've lived there for the 22 years that we've been married. We feel that we've been good neighbors to the yacht club and the marina through the years. If we see a boat or one of the inflatable docks in some trouble out at the yacht club, we'll call them so the owners can be notified. In the application submitted March 8th for the additional docks at the marina, it states the primary purpose of this structure is to serve our youth water sports camps and sailing program. As for my husband and me, it isn't our intent to be the bad guys in this situation. It's our understanding that the youth club is growing and they're looking to expand even more. Young people learning new things and having fun is good, and the larger the attendance, the more profitable it is for the business owners. But our concerns are primarily with the secondary purpose of the proposed dock, which is for the 5 transient boat slips. And I quote, "It's for easy access for small boat guests to our facilities." Again, we understand that the more guests at the restaurant, the better it is for the bottom line. According to the website, the Yacht Club restaurant is open until 9 p.m. during the week, until 10 on weekends. Considering the close proximity of the proposed docks to our home and the fact that our bedroom is in that area of the house, we see a potential problem with the noise from those guests starting their boat engines late into the evening when leaving the dock. Loud music from the boats happens often at the marina, and although the marina owners do not condone that or any other unwelcome activity at the docks, we don't see a way that that can be constantly policed. On page 13, I think it's that one that's up there, it shows that the docks would be 175 feet from our property. But that figure is measured from the side of the proposed dock nearest the existing marina. So the proposed docks are projected to be 40 feet wide, so it would seem that you would need to subtract approximately 40 feet from that 175, which means that the docks would actually be closer to our property than that. In February of this year, the HOA lifted the restriction on homeowners in Gatlin Point North having private docks. And I see at the beginning of this that there is a deed restriction on that, so we believe that more research needs to be done regarding who would be allowed to have the private docks in our development. As we stated with Justin and Mr. Holloway in May, we have no objections to the docks being on the other side. We're just not sure how much protection there is when we have a nor'easter. We've been there for many nor'easters, and we've been there through Isabel, and the walkway actually washed away and was caught on a tree in our property. So when the weather's bad, it's going to be bad at that marina. We see there are several public comments for this application on the VMRC site, many of them in favor. Most of those pertain to the aspect of the youth sailing club, but we noticed one of those comments is written by the applicant, one by his wife, another by an employee, and still another by the president of the business from whom we understand the docks were purchased. We've spoken with some of the neighbors who are not in favor of the additional docks, but they have personal reasons for not submitting public comments. Obviously, the location of these proposed docks would not affect any other landowner to the effect that it would affect us. We feel these docks could definitely have a negative impact on our lives in several ways, and we respectfully ask that the application be denied as written. Thank you.
Is there any questions from the commission for the speaker? Any questions?
Commissioner, I have one question.
Proceed.
Ms. Kane, you said the HOA lifted the deed restriction. Did they file that with the county or anything like
Not
that?
sure I have a copy of it in my folder, and it happened in February of this year. They had originally denied homeowners the ability to have a dock because of the marina, but, and I'm not sure what the reason was for them changing their mind, but they did lift that restriction against the homeowners in the Gatlin Point North development.
Okay.
Any more questions? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record and the microphone.
Betsy Egan.
Proceed.
I'm here in favor of the proposed additional floating docks. I support them because I'm a lifelong sailor and a resident for 23 years in Gatlin Point. And I guess
You gotta stay in the microphone, ma'am. I understand. but you
I
can't-
do.
We gotta have you, we gotta hear you for the record, so gotta have it recorded.
I just like to see you. Thank you for listening to me. At the age of 4, I started sailing, and all my family members and cousins and aunts and uncles and everybody. It gives you discipline. It guides you in the right direction. That said, a lot of the people who live in Gatlin Point are military families, and their kids are very responsible kids. And we often love to come out and look at the stars at night because there's less light there. And it's extremely quiet. But I acknowledge that the Keens live 24/7, and so they would be more reliable on how often they have a noise problem. With the boats being transient and not there after sundown, I don't see a problem, and I also don't see them making any more noise than the other boats in the far floating dock. So the other thing on, you can see a shadow on the other map that has the rendering, the green, the colors on it. You can see a hazy area in the water. Initially, with the previous owners, the access for the sailors with the little Optimus prams. I can't remember what age they start, but the kids do have to learn, they have to pass a swimming test. And that's just going to increase their safety around the water. So anyway, that shell bank, they had to walk across that shell bank, and it's a huge growing oyster shell bank. They had to wear sturdy shoes, and sometimes even then they would cut their feet because they would have to walk out to the deeper water. And it depended on the tide, but they usually had to walk that. So I just am very much in favor of the continuing the excellent job that the new owners have brought over the past year, 2 years, two, yeah. They're very responsible. They're very community oriented. It's a very nice community with a lot of respect among the residents, and I just feel that we need to support the growing sailing program, which is now appealing to adults also, and it's a wonderful skill to have. See if I had anything else. Well, I just want to thank you for listening to me today.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Is there any questions for the speaker? Thank you. Thank you.
Bill Egan.
Ms. Reed, do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record and the microphone.
Bill Egan.
Proceed.
We've been in Gatling Point for 20-something years. In the last several years, there's been an uptick in the vitality of the yacht club, and it's been brought about by this refocus on the youth and their contribution to our community, which has been exciting to see. So I'm here in support of adding this here. Excuse me.
I've never seen this happen before. Usually when... My patience is thin on this kind of activity, sir.
I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm here to support it. I know that the statement was made that this is bringing commerce to the yacht club, and maybe it is, but I'm driven by the fact that I know I've been knowing Gordon Holloway, he's a member of our church, and he's made so many contributions to the Smithfield community. His motivation is certainly balanced, but it's also for the purpose of enhancing our community. So I'm here to speak in favor of this. I think it's a great program for youth, and we certainly need something to divert the kids from iPads and that kind of thing. And this is a healthy, spiritual. I don't know if you all sail, but sailing is a whole nother world of activity and brings you in connection with nature and the things that make life grand. So anyway, I helped with this drawing. If there are any questions about that, there was a question about the distance to the shore, and those dimensions are just straight off the shoreline, so I'm not sure what the 40-foot thing was about, but this should reflect actual conditions. So I don't know if there are any
Is there any questions for the speaker?
and thank you all for this, and sorry about the phone. I apologize for that.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Anyone else, Joe? That's it. All right, well, that's our list of speakers. The matter is before the commission.
Commissioner, I have a question for Chief Owen about the HOA lifting the deed restriction and if there was any filing with the Isle of Wight Circuit Court, County Court.
I'm not aware of that. The marina was permitted in 1987 with the court-recorded deed restrictions that prohibited private piers from these properties. The original permit for the existing marina is conditioned on adherence to that condition. It might be a matter for Kelsey if they were to get eventual, I don't know what it takes, not a lawyer, what it takes to remove a deed restriction from multiple deeds of property, and then what that means for riparian area and your rights to wharf out could be a pretty ugly civil matter, I would imagine. But I don't believe we would, if a request comes forward to peer out from these private properties, the fact that the homeowners accepted that deed restriction and built homes in there with this marina going in there, I believe we would have to recognize the footprint of that marina and the need to get to and from it.
Kelsey, I mean, I don't know the relative nature of with the potential of wharfing out from another property. Is there any current application, Randy, for somebody trying from another property?
No, sir.
So there's no relative nature, in my opinion. Kelsey, do you have any other opinion on that?
No, the speed restrictions are a whole different beast that would require me actually knowing what it says, et cetera. But yeah, until that comes up specifically, I don't know that it's really relevant to this particular matter.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Bishop, I would think that the HOA, if they did this in February of 2024, they've had ample time to file with Isle of Wight County. So.
So, any more questions from the commission? That being said, matters before the commission.
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve staff
Second.
recommendation
Yes, sir.
from our Associate Member Headley.
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Branson. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All right, we're good. Is there anyone opposed to this motion that's been properly seconded? Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimous consent. Thank you. Randy, it looks like you're up again.
We're moving over to Lancaster County. Rappahannock River Yacht Club is requesting authorization to extend an existing pier to accommodate 10 additional slips at their facility at 100 Rappahannock Road along Carter Creek in Lancaster County. The project is protested by a nearby property owner. Project's located in the town of Irvington on Carter Creek, about 2,000 feet inside the mouth of Carter Creek with the Rappahannock River. This club's been here since 1936, has 150 members, 32 wet slips, so there is a waiting list. This, you can see their neighbor to the immediate north is Rappahannock Yachts, and encircled in red is the yacht club. And this is just a shot of their facility looking towards the south. You can see the, let me make my laser on here. This is the Rappahannock River here, and we're looking from Rappahannock Yachts across the Rappahannock River Yacht Club's property, which is the T-head pier with 32 slips, and out to the Rappahannock River. Here's their pier again here with the 32 slips. They do have a ramp and a tending pier. They have a swimming pool, a clubhouse, and a pool house, I believe, as well as the parking for the whole yacht club. They're asking for 4 new floating docks, a fixed pier off of the existing T to accommodate 10 additional slips with the associated mooring piles necessary to moor the 10, to support the 10 slips. It'll go an additional 38 feet into Carter Creek. This drawing provided by the applicant, it's 915 feet between the shorelines. I took a measurement from the end of the yacht club pier to the opposing pier on the opposing shoreline, and it's 650 foot of thoroughfare in there. Project is protested by Mr. Kevin Fay, who argues that the 38-foot extension into that waterway will impede boat traffic and increase the risk of collision for passing boaters. However, we have been advised by the Coast Guard and the Corps that the proposed extension into Carter Creek is acceptable. I prepared this slide to assist you. The red star is the yacht club. There is a 650-foot thoroughfare there. As you move into Carter Creek, it narrows, obviously, heading towards the tide's end, but the creek is amply wide to handle the proposed expansion. Project will encroach slightly into the lease of Ellery Kellum. They do have this gentleman's signature allowing the encroachment. We have approval from both the Division of Shellfish Sanitation as well as the Marina Program with a proposal, and my screen is back. So in summary, the Rappahannock River Yacht Club has worked diligently with the commission to maintain the compliance with VMRC and acquire the necessary permits all the way back to 1979. In fact, I pulled 6 permits that we have on file for this facility. And so they've been diligent in being a steward of the creek as far as getting their permits. We believe it's a minor encroachment, and we support both the Coast Guard and the Corps' position that it will not adversely impact navigation. Accordingly, after evaluating the merits of the project, after considering all the factors contained in 28.2.1205A of the Code of Virginia, we found the proposal to be reasonable and permissible use of state unsubmerged bottom and recommend approval to extend the pier to accommodate the 10 slips with a royalty of $12,264 for the encroachment over 8,176 square feet of state land at a standard rate of $1.50 per square foot for this private yacht club, sir. I'm gonna leave that picture up for you. I think I'll use that one.
Thank you, Chief Owen. Is there any questions for Chief Owen from the commission? Nice. Ms. Kellum?
Not a question, I just have just a statement that I'm gonna abstain from voting due to the fact that Kellum Seafood is the current leaseholder,
Okay.
for this project on the oyster ground.
All right, we have an abstention from the vote for Ms. Kellum.
Are there any parking requirements by the county for the addition of these spaces that require vehicle parking to take care of those spaces? Because I looked at that little space right there.
Is Mr. Springett in the room? He's not, but I can represent. Yeah, I don't know the answer. It is my, I know that the county has, it didn't go before the Wetlands Board. I would assume that that would be in place. I do not know that answer, though. I apologize. I don't know whether they've approved it or not for the extra 10 slips.
We'll get to other speakers in 1 second. We don't need to be talking from the audience. Any other questions? Thank you, Randy. Is the applicant or an agent or representative here wish to speak on behalf of the applicant? Please come forward, sir.
Thank you very much.
Are you an attorney for the group?
No, I'm the club commodore.
Gotta swear you in. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record, sir.
My name is Ian Ormisher.
Proceed.
Thank you very much. Mr. Springett offers his apologies for being unable to attend. What I'd like to briefly address, I'll quickly address your point then. No, we had no requirements for additional car parking for the 10 slips. I'd like to talk very briefly about the club, why we're doing this, and then as Mr. Fayed objected on a safety issue, I've got some other information which the Commission might find useful. Rappahannock River Yacht Club is very much a local grassroots yacht club. We are a private yacht club, but we do get ourselves involved with the community quite heavily. We run boat parades that are open to the public in the summer and in the fall. We use our facility there to let people onto the shore to watch the boat parades. Our regattas and sailing races that we run are open to members of the general public, not just yacht club members. We run a junior sailing program, which is also open to the general public, not just yacht club members. In the fall, we jointly host the Hospice Turkey Shoot Regatta, which, as well as being the largest sailing event in our area, also makes a major contribution to the operational costs of hospice on the Northern Neck. So we do consider ourselves to be a good local community citizens and contribute back to the community. Why we're doing this, I'm sure it applies to other areas that the Commission deals with as well, but over the last few years, we've seen a significant reduction in slip availability. And it seems to be driven by two things, and it was accelerated during COVID. But one of the things was that traditional watermen's properties that might have served as slips for extended family member or friends have been basically bought up to private residents and turned into single-family homes with slips or a boat lift that only served that family. So reduction in slips because of that. Also on the slide there, you see the Rappahannock Yachts property belonging to Bruce Sanders. That's actually 3 separate lots, 2 of which have been sold as single-family homes, And the third is under sale activity at the moment, and we do not know what the outcome of that will be. But the outcome so far, and the foreseeable outcome that we can see, is that there will be a continued reduction in slip availability in the area. We as a yacht club need slips to be able to operate effectively. So that's one of our primary reasons. Mr. Fay had objected to this proposal based on safety issues. I think one of the things that's not been covered in the documentation is that this whole area of Carter's Creek is actually a no-wake zone, to which I'm sure Mrs. Kellum can attest to if needed. But in 2019, from just inside the entry to Carter's Creek, right the way down to the tides in, was designated a no-wake zone. It is buoyed, those buoys are maintained, and so the likelihood of any interaction between a boat and the pier in the way that Mr. Fay suggests, we believe to be extremely unlikely. That's all I've got. I'm obviously happy to take any questions from the Commission if you have any.
Thank you, sir. Is there any questions for Speaker? Mr. Erskine?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Have there been any reports, to your knowledge, of accidents or incidents as far as vessel traffic?
No, not at all.
Okay. As a follow-up, sir?
Yes, sir.
Is there any channel marker located to the west of your existing?
No, there are no channel markers once you enter Carter's Creek. It's then open, but quite frankly, you don't see it on these, but it's very clear the directions that you're heading. When you enter Carter's Creek, you've got the tides in straight ahead of you. If you're going in that direction, it's blatantly obvious. If you're going right into Yachts Cove or one of the other coves, it's blatantly obvious. So for the main navigational aspects, there shouldn't be any issue at all.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for the Speaker? Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else here wishes to speak on this matter, Gerald? That was it? No one speaking? That being said, matters before the Commission.
Make a motion to approve the project as submitted.
Got a motion to approve, project submitted by Mr. Erskine, got a second from Mr. Bransom. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? That being said, is there anyone that opposes that motion that's been properly seconded to approve staff recommendation? Anyone oppose that motion? Motion carries with unanimous consent with Ms. Kellum abstaining. For the record, Ms. Kellum abstaining. Thank you. Thank you, Randy. Onward. I think, Adam, I think you're up.
This is a public hearing for oyster ground planting application 2121-050 made by Lynnhaven River Now. They are requesting authorization to lease approximately 5 acres of oyster planting ground in the Lynnhaven River. This is in the city of Virginia Beach. Just as a proximity map, Lynnhaven is on the southern end of Chesapeake Bay. More specifically, this lease request is in the main stem of the bay on the south side of the island. VMRC solicits public comments a few different ways. These applications are put on the website for at least 30 days, this being a 2021 application. It's been on there for quite a bit. These applications are also staked on the water so that individuals who are using that waterway can visually see the stakes and provide public comments at that point. They're advertised in a local newspaper for 2 weeks in an area that is close to the application. And there are also certified letters sent to adjacent property owners within 200 feet, as well as adjacent lease owners. And some of the newer requirements since this application came in is also the town hall website's required to be there for 30 days. This specific application did receive 4 total public comments. 3 of them has been resolved. One of them pertained to the ability to it not be in a navigation channel, which clearly this is not. And the other 2 had to do with not using recreational areas of a large sandbar on the north side of the area. The applicant mitigated and made his application smaller to mitigate those comments, and they were ultimately withdrawn. We still have 1 public comment, 1 protest. Just to give you an idea of what it looks like on the water, This individual application was staked in the middle of the summer. There are these large yellow signs that we put on the stakes that are visible to the public. This allows for solicitation of more public comments. This scan code right there brings them directly to our website that they can leave a public comment. In your packet, you can view the public comments that are provided by the protestant today. Staff cannot ascertain any specific rationale to not to support the request based on Chapter 28.2, 1205. This area is not a navigation channel. It does not have submerged aquatic vegetation. There is no personal property or piers, and it aligns with similar activity of other oyster planting grounds in the area, as it was historically used as oyster planting ground as well. The applicant has paid all the fees and abided by all the advertisement requirements. The fees include that they have paid an application fee of $1,000, a newspaper ad, which runs approximately $500 depending on the newspaper, surveying fee of $750, adjacent letters, approximately $25 in certified fees, as well as $78 in staking fees for the poles. This application was approved by staff. There was one protestant that chose not to withdraw their comments. Those comments can be found in the packet in front of you, and I believe both the applicant and the protestant are here to provide their comments today. The Code of Virginia 1205 allows the commission to grant or deny the use of the state-owned bottomlands, taking into consideration both the public and private benefit of the proposed project. Although staff has no objection to the application and has found it appropriate to assign, staff is requesting guidance from this commission to confirm the approval of this application based on the considerations raised by residents, comments concerning the support of the request, and considerations of the public trust doctrine. The protestant, who is here today, has appealed the decision to assign the lease and is requesting this hearing in front of the commission. I'm happy to take any questions on the background of this application.
Is any questions for Chief Kenyon from the commission? Mr. Headley.
Thank you, Chief Kenyon. What is the water depth in that area? Because like the picture we see right here, it looks very, very shallow.
It is relatively shallow. We did go out and stake that area to find mean low water. There are some areas, specifically in here, you can't quite see it on this green, where there are some shell plants that are above mean low water, but since they are man-made, they still fall within the jurisdiction of this commission to be able to assign. The applicant can probably attest to this better, as it does vary, but it's probably nothing more than 1 or 2 feet of water.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions for Chief? Mr. Erskine.
Chief Kenyon, the entire green area is proposed for lease, 5 acres. Do you know if, and this might be for the applicant, that they would plant on bottom the entire lease, or is there a specific area?
In their application, they have indicated that they will plant shell. The Code of Virginia allows them to propagate shellfish to the fullest extent. So the applicant has said that they plan on planting shell, but does not quite say what extent they're going to plant shell or over the course of the 10 years. So they could be able to attest to that better.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Branson.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chief, the primary way to get in and out of there is through that lease that's directly to the south? Is that the route that they're gonna go in? Because, I know these waters, and there's not a whole lot of way to get in there other than one spot there, maybe from the north.
That might be a better question for the applicant, but you are correct. Generally, people access that area from the south.
And I think you're being gracious if you say it's 2 feet. It's
1 to 2,
probably
1
like
to 2
6
feet.
inches to 1
It
foot.
does vary.
Any more questions for Chief Kenyon? Yeah, appreciate you. That being said, is the applicant or representative of the applicant here and wish to speak on this matter? Please come forward. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
My name's Brent James.
Proceed, sir.
I'm Captain Brent James. I'm a member of the Board of Directors for Lynn Haven River Now. I'm also, as it happens, the Oyster Restoration Coordinator for Lynn Haven River Now. Give you a little background on this lease application. It was formerly owned by a waterman in the Lynn Haven named John Meekins, who on very untimely death about 4 years ago. We applied for it after the requisite waiting period, and along with several other leases that we wanted to have for environmental purposes. The protestant applied over top of us for all of them, and so we had a bit of a quandary as to how to proceed with all that. The way we resolved that, and much to the credit of Adam Kenyon, we compromised on all of those other applications. We either withdrew our application and allowed the protestant to have them in total, or we adjusted our request so that he could have the areas within those leases that he requested, and then we took the other areas. So we tried to accommodate to the greatest extent possible his requirements or his desires. This lease offers a unique area for spat transport as promulgated by the Virginia Institute of Marine Sciences Hydrographic Modeling, Eastern Branch, Western Branch, and the Lesnar area of the Lynnhaven primarily, which what we're trying to do is reintroduce the wild stocks of oysters into these lease areas and then use those as propagation areas for spat transport. We work in close cooperation with all the oystermen and watermen in the Lynnhaven, and especially the aquaculturists 100% support those guys because it takes the pressure off the wild stocks. So we're not opposed to harvesting oysters per se, but what we're trying to do is reintroduce the wild oysters into the Lynnhaven that have been there for generations, centuries. The marsh islands in this area, as has been pointed out, it's kind of enclosed by marsh islands. They've experienced a great deal of erosion, and with sea level rise issues in the back of our mind, we want to put, and the point was made that 2 feet may be a generous rending of the depth of the area. Most of the oyster beds historically in the Lynnhaven have been in the intertidal zone. So we would like to put the oysters in there in order to support strengthening the marsh island edges and helping to mitigate the erosion problems. We also, as we are evolving in this process, we see mussels are becoming more and more of an adjunct to the oysters, and the mussels, some people would want to harvest them or kill them, destroy them. We would like to encourage that growth because their tendrils interweave with the card grass and help hold the banks of the marsh islands. We intend to employ the very best management practices in building this oyster reef in this area, living shoreline type practices so that there'll be no environmental damage whatsoever done to them. And out of a sense of responsibility to the public trust, we're trying very hard to get the oysters, the wild oysters, back reintroduced into the Lynnhaven. Have had some good success with it, and would like to continue that process.
Commissioner Branson. Yes, Chief, can you put up that picture that has the entire 79 acres, I think it's in red? And sir, if you would talk to the adjustments or mitigations or agreements that you made?
Just for clarification, are you talking about the original application that
Yes.
you're looking in your packet?
Yes.
So
That right
this what you're looking at on the screen, it's also in your packet, was the original application proposed by Lynnhaven River Now. You can see it encompasses this large portion of the sandbar as well as areas in Crab Creek. Working with the applicant, which is generally general practice with the agency to better mitigate user conflict, they did agree to pull back this area to eliminate any user conflict on this large sandbar. This area was surveyed in Crab Creek. Since this original one was with Ms. Meekins in 2021, mean low water has shifted quite consistently, and rather than being this large area, the only area that was available above mean low water that this commission had jurisdiction over was a small area up there. At that point, the applicant chose to withdraw that portion of the application as well, just to give you some context.
So it's shrunk all the way down to the approximate 5 acres that you have to the lower southeast portion there. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Erskine.
Do you plan to plant seed or shell across all 5 acres, or are there specific areas you're looking at?
Well, eventually, yes. We have a cooperative program with the City of Virginia Beach. We collect oyster shells from 14 seafood restaurants in Virginia Beach, recycle those, store them down at the Jake Sears landfill. We have approximately 20,000 bushels there stored up from the restaurants. And we'll use, as time progresses, we'll use some of that in this lease, some of it on other reef areas that we have established. But yes, our ultimate goal would be to pretty much make this one big giant oyster reef. And I don't have a specific time frame for that, but that's our eventuality.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Mr. Headley?
Thank you. How many acres of oyster lease do y'all have, you yourself or Lynn Haven River now?
About 45 acres.
All in Lynn Haven?
All in the Lynn Haven, yes, sir. Well, the Lynn Haven estuary, including Broad Bay, Lincoln Bay, the different areas.
Yes, sir.
All of these, like reef, for reef use only?
Yes, no harvest. Ours are strictly for sanctuary reef environmental use.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for the speaker?
This will be a sanctuary reef, not a harvest.
Sanctuary reef, sir.
Any more questions for the speaker? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. James. Jill, is there anyone on the list here to speak on this topic? Mr. Clifford, please come forward. Right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Beverly Ludford.
Proceed.
I am currently the leaseholder for the contiguous lease that was mentioned earlier to the south of the lease in question being deliberated today. My lease is barely over 2 acres, and it is utilized primarily for oyster aquaculture farming to market size, and additionally for ecotourism, agritourism, and education. Our family business, Pleasure House Oysters, has placed over 600 bushels of clean shell on the lease being requested by Lynn Haven River Now, and has kept watch over this lease for the past 12 years. This was achieved by agreement with the previous leaseholder, John Meekins, who passed away March the 3rd, 2020. Mr. Meekins was a longtime friend and partner and is sorely missed on the Lynn Haven. Lynn Haven River Now is, if successful, has agreed to continue to work in the same manner with me as a buffer to preserve the security of both my lease and this one for continued aquaculture, education, and conservation. I respectfully ask that Lynn Haven River Now be granted this lease.
Is there any questions for Ms. Clifford from the commission? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you for your service on SMAC. We really do appreciate you. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but truth, so help you God?
I do, sir.
Please state your name for the record.
Thank you. My name is Chris Ludford, and I'm a oyster farmer, aquaculture operator in Lynn Haven, and work the lease with my mother. This is going to be tough. Bear with me. Because I'm friends with both parties. I consider them friends, and I've known the Protestants since 1990, and I've known Lynn Haven River Now since they were formed in 2000-ish. I'm here to speak in favor of them getting the lease, Lynn Haven River Now, but I need to go on record as to why for 2 reasons. One, for you commissioners to know why I support it, and secondly, to prevent any long-term rift from forming between me and the Protestant. I've known the Protestant since 1990, and I don't want to have any hard feelings. In 2022, I was contacted by at least 2 individuals and an individual representing an organization who were considering to formally protest the protestant who had applications in for leases that were Mr. Meekins, previous to Mr. Meekins. Okay? The leases were 22954, 23051, and 23284. They were held by Mr. Meekins previously. These individuals were applying for bottom in the Lynn Haven, and their applications had been protested by that same protestant that's here today. Are y'all following me? Because this is important. I appreciate your time. And I don't know why I don't just use names. He's going to be up here in a second. Is that okay?
You use your conscience to be your God.
Okay, so the protestant, I believe, staff is Mr. Sanford, right? Mark Sanford? Okay, thank you. I appreciate it, Mark. So Mr. Sanford had protested their applications, and there was a bit going on back and forth. When they called me and asked about protesting him back, I explained to them that 2 wrongs don't make a right, that protesting Mr. Sanford would be on the same reasoning that he was doing it to them, and it would just create another tit-for-tat situation and escalate the protest, counter-protest atmosphere that is counterproductive for everyone and mires the VMRC system in further backlog of applications. So in that way, I was helping Mr. Sanford. These people agreed with me and then chose not to protest him. He got the leases. I've never told Mr. Sanford about this help until today, but I wanted to go on record while on oath and being recorded for the permanent record. I wanted to share it in hopes that there will be no rift, grudge held by Mr. Sanford for my support of Lynn Haven River Now today. Mr. Sanford's an old-fashioned guy. He keeps score, and, you know, I don't want that to happen between us. With all that being said, I'd like to again formally support this application by Lynn Haven River Now on the grounds that they have been previously conservative in what bottom they've applied for. They have been fair in their dealings with Mr. Sanford and other watermen in the Lynn Haven, and I think they'll be productive with most of the lease, this lease. I've offered them help in their efforts, and probably, and have, and will future offer them access with my mother's cooperation through her lease to the south. One last thing I'd like to say. I'm not a big fan of government agencies, cities, towns, municipalities, or conservation groups holding oyster leases in the state of Virginia. I reserve the right to support or oppose future applications by these types of entities. I don't want this to be a precedent on me as a person. I would also suggest that the VMRC look into putting a cap on the acreage that these type of entities can hold, and that it should be a lot less than commercial shellfish harvesters. I knew Mr. Meekins a long time, been working next to this lease for a long time. I put a lot of shell and a lot of effort into the lease that they're getting. If you have any questions, I'm here for you. Thank you for your time.
Is there any questions from the commission? Mr. Leffler? Thank you, sir. Thank you. Joe? Guess we can use your name now. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name for the
My name is Mark Sanford. I've got notes to make it real quick, but I gotta pull it up. But I'll start with this. The reason why I'm protesting this is, in general, there are over 200 acres already in Lynn Haven that have been set aside for restoration. That's the number one thing. I don't have the ability to go on to condemned bottom in Lynn Haven to do any kind of aquaculture, grow oysters or anything. Lynn Haven River Now has the opportunity, and they have taken this, to apply for a joint application permit. And as of July 1st, before July 1st of this year, they had 5 applications up in the western branch that they could have acted on, but yet they let that expire. Those areas are still staked up to this day with PVC pipes along the shoreline in different areas. Why they didn't act on that, I have no clue. Let me see. So basically, that is my original application. I did not want any more than that. That bottom has been used well over 100 years commercially, period. My great-grandfather used it, my grandfather used it, my father used it, and my uncle. That bottom, if it sits idle, will cover up by that marsh. If you go back and you look at Google Earth, you will see the shell that Mr. Marshall put there back in the 30s and 40s and was worked all the way through the 70s until they shut it down. When it opened back up in 97 or 2007, that's when it started getting worked again. If that bottom is not worked, you can write that off. Those oysters are going to cover up, is what's going to happen. That is a very dynamic area there, and it will continue to creep to the south. I've seen it. I've been on that water for 40 years. I can draw you a map of every square inch of that river, you know. And as far as the upper corner, can you bring up that other map? Yeah. And by the way, this is the third rendition of their application. They said well, I don't even know how to use a pointer. Can you? Yeah. Can you go up here? Right there. That dock right there, that's Chesapeake Bay Foundation. Their corner that they applied for was right off the boat dock. And it ran down that shoreline. That shoreline is eroding, is what it's doing. That would be a perfect place to put shell, to stop erosion if that's what they really want to do. And oysters will strike there. I mean, the oyster strike in Lynn Haven is phenomenal. It's a trap estuary, and you know, I'm trying to grow oysters aquaculture-wise. The strike is so bad, I can't. I'm dumping my stuff on the bottom just to keep it from striking up. And the reason why I want the acreage I want is because I want to rotate what I harvest. I don't want to go in there and deplete anything. I want to rotate it. I want to go from lease to lease to lease is what I want to do. I'm not there to take away. Like I said, I'm long-term. I've been there 40 years on my own, and I want to be there another 20 if I can. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Is there any other questions from Mr. Sand, from the commission? Mr. Headley?
Thank you, Mr. Sanford. So you have an application in for this?
Yes, sir.
too?
Yes, sir.
And I asked before, since you're very familiar with this area, what is the water depth in it?
It varies. If you can see the striations on the western edge, those right there are actually shell plant that originated from Mr. Marshall back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. He would harvest those oysters, and he actually ran all the way through that marsh up to almost the very north edge of the lease, that green line. And it's all covered up there. You know, I mean, worst case, honestly, I want that lease because I depend on my income. I don't have a retirement check, you know, like, you know, the previous speakers, okay? I don't have a retirement check. I have to work until the day, honestly, I drop dead. And, you know, if I can't have that lease, I would actually like to see it turned into public rock so other commercial fishermen can possibly utilize that. I mean, you know, there is 17 acres of public bottom in the Broad Bay area. It's an 8 to 17 foot of water. It's mud bottom. There really is nothing there. The public can't use it, you know. I mean, I would rather see it go public than be put in the hands of Lynn Haven River Now to where it's going to actually cover up, because I've honestly seen what Lynn Haven River Now has done, and I've actually also heard from the city of Virginia Beach, who has bottom, and they asked Mr. James to put shell on their bottom so they could keep it. He said 4 bushels. The city of Virginia Beach has 101 acres already. That's just the city of Virginia Beach that they plan on doing restoration. So this is my livelihood, and I'd like to continue to do it. That's pretty much it.
Thank you. Mark, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
So we heard Airline Lynn Haven River, they want to use it as a sanctuary.
Yes, sir.
Could you explain to me the difference in what they'll do with it, and if you got the lease, what you would do with it? I
well-
think I know, but I want to hear it.
Yeah, basically, if you let an oyster rock sit, it will basically build up, and the oysters will strike on it, but what'll happen is it'll die. It's just like the seaside. If you don't work an oyster rock on the seaside, it will build to a point where the oyster will strike. It'll get about 2 inches tall on top of the rock, and it will die. If you don't knock it down and spread the shell out, it's just going to die. It's not going to be manageable. You know, it will die or cover up is what it will do. And it's not helping anybody. And that's why I said let the public go in there. At least I know the public will harvest it. You have to work oysters like agriculture. You have to turn it over. You have to continually use it in order for it to spread. That's what I do with my oyster rocks. If I was to take you to one of my rocks that I've worked last year, you would see the strike on it, and you would understand what I'm talking about. I have to work that rock again this year, which, just to break it down and spread. And I've been doing this ever since it opened back up, since 2000. I'm saying 2007. It could have been sooner. I'm an active waterman, and I do this.
Any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Sanford.
All right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other speakers? All right. That being said,
Could I allow a couple points of clarification for the
Absolutely.
commission? This item in front of you is not an either-or application. 28.2605 requires the commission to approve application in the order which they came in. Lynn Haven Rivers Now application came in a day before Mr. Sanford, so these are not competing applications. We're not deciding one or the other today. Depending on the outcome of this application, we will move to the next application for consideration.
thank you for that, Adam. Any questions for Mr. Kenyon? That being said, matters before the commission. Mr. Headley?
I believe in oyster restoration. I like to see certain areas with reefs and all, but when it comes to reefs versus shore to stay built up to keep working on, where do we draw the line if we have over 200 acres of leased bottom in the Lynn Haven Now that are specifically for restoration efforts instead of actively being worked? I have to agree with Mr. Sanford when he said, if you do not work a oyster shore or oyster bottom, being public or private, it does silt over. It will go in the bottom. You will eventually lose it. Just a point I wanted to say.
Anything else from the commission? No comments, concerns? Ms. Callum?
I've got a question for Chief Kenyon. Sorry.
Adam, you're supposed to stay up there.
With the 1 to 2 depth of water in there, what happens in the winter, like on an extreme ray tide? If there was a reef, would everything be exposed?
That's a good question. I can't comment on that area. The Code of Virginia is not specific on restoration and/or harvest on these 10-year leases. The Code of Virginia allows for the applicant to use that lease to the fullest extent. So the Code of Virginia allows both planting and/or the harvest, but it's not specific, nor are there permit conditions that require one or the other. As far as what would happen to it in the winter, that is really up to the applicant. There are plenty of oyster applications that fail, be that because they selected a poor area, the substrate is not significant enough, or there's poor strikes. I don't know if that necessarily answers your question. Other than I don't know what would happen in the winter. That would be up to the applicant to be able to adapt and adjust if they choose.
It's a very good question, because we had the same problem happen in Morris Bay years ago when we were advised against doing that show water stuff, and all of them froze.
Yeah.
And died.
Mr. Kenyon, do you know if anything's on the bottom right now?
like natural?
As multiple people,
in this lease.
there is some striations right here that were hand planted here on that western area. I know you can kind of see the striations in there. So yes, there is some oyster product on the bottom there currently, whether it's shell or live, I am unaware.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Mr. Ludford attested to that some, Mrs. Ludford too. So, any more questions? Mr. Branson?
Chief Kenyon, I want to thank you for your work with the applicant and the applicant's willingness to work to neck down from 79 acres to 5 acres. I hear both sides of this, and I don't see a problem with this moving forward. But thank you, and thank the applicant for the working with protestants to try and resolve any of these issues.
As the chairman, I have to ask the question, is that a motion?
Sir, I move to approve the application.
Got a motion to approve the application from Mr. Branson. Do I have a second? Do I have a second to approve the application?
I'll second it for discussion.
Got a second from Mr. Erskine. Any further discussion?
I'm going to probably abstain because I want to hear, I want to get a little more information on what Mark said about if LRN's going to use this and in true fact that it's going to just go bottom up and be not an oyster bed, that would affect how I vote. So I'm going to abstain on this vote.
All right. I'm putting you down for that right now. We'll see if they change their mind. So, any more discussion? I can't bring you back up, sorry. Mr. Erskine.
Thank you, Chief Kenyon, and I appreciate the comments for and against the application, and do recognize, as Mr. Branson said, there's been some compromise, some hard work put into this on the original application. I think it's interesting when we look at sanctuaries, those obviously in most of our eyes as non-harvest areas, and there's a value in that in sanctuaries, certainly, educationally, and so on. But it came to light here in the testimony that there are some areas possibly that are condemned, that may have available ground and leases, and those areas may be more suitable to sanctuaries where it's non-harvest. The industry goes in areas and obviously would like to harvest. So, relay is a possibility, and that's an economic burden on industry. And then there are areas that the industry cannot go and plant and cultivate and actually harvest from as it's restricted. So I understand there's been a lot of compromise, and I seconded this for discussion because I think the sanctuary and the harvest area is important. I'd also recognize that this commission through the years has had a lot of discussion about floating gear, and I realize this is not floating gear. In the Lynn Haven has a lot of contentious issues with user conflicts. And the industry, quite frankly, has been squeezed in this area, and this board has declined a number of applications to grow oysters at the surface. So I do think it's important to look strategically at both a sanctuary and harvest areas. So I put that out there as part of the discussion with this.
Absolutely. I would like to make a comment, and it was good hearing from Mr. James, but you guys need to understand, this is state-owned bottom. Mr. James and Lynn Haven River Round, no one else has the authority to actually make it a sanctuary. If they get the lease, they can keep it closed all they want. They can call it whatever they want. But if they do reserve the right, if they decide to change their mind to open it up, and if Lynn Haven River Now wants to open it up at some point, there's no, that lease is leased to them, and that would be up to how they operate, not, they could change their mind. They could sell the lease. That being said, any more questions, any more comments? So I have a motion from Mr. Branson to accept the application to Lynn Haven River Now as presented. It's been properly seconded by Mr. Erskine. Any more discussion before I put this to vote? I have an abstention from Mr. White. So that being said, Mr. White's abstaining. I'm going to do a show of hands if that's good with y'all. All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Ms. Kellum, Mr. Erskine, Mr. Branson, Ms. Edwards. Voted 4. 4. All those opposed, raise your hand. Mr. Headley and Mr. Preston. Motion carries 4-2 with 1 abstention. Mr. White. Thank you. Did you get coffee back there? Much earlier. All right.
It's because it was empty when I went there.
Next item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have anything here today? Sir.
Mr. Commissioner, I just wanted to take a minute to recognize, you did a nice job recognizing some of the important people that have come before us and part of this agency, and I just wanted to recognize that we lost a member of the shellfish industry about 2 weeks ago, and that was Tommy Mason from Chincoteague. And Tommy was a tremendous contributor to the clam and oyster industry and a good friend of many of us, and just want to recognize his contributions to the seafood industry in general in Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Erskine. That was a good catch. We're losing a lot of our buddies nowadays for some reason, and I guess it means we're getting older. But it's been a tough year, that's for sure. So thank you for that. That being said, is there anybody here for public comment?
Dale, first name Dale,
Is there?
U.S. Navy.
Let me make this easy. Is anybody in here want to speak during public comment at this time? This is your opportunity. Come forward on an item that is not on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
All right. You're already sworn in. You're already sworn in. Just state your name for the record, Mr. Sanford.
Yes, sir. Mr. Sanford, I'm Mark Sanford. Anyway, back in, I believe it was 2016, somewhere along those lines, when waters become condemned in the state of Virginia, you're no longer allowed to lease that to commercial fishermen. Would it be possible for the commission to look into the possibility of rescinding that, or just exploring different options to where, like for me, I have to grow seed. I buy from the hatchery, I buy at 1.7 millimeters. I put them in spat bags. And I've been having a problem up in the front part of Lynnhaven River where I'm getting a terrible amount of strike. But if I move further back into the Lynnhaven where the salinity level is not quite as high, I tend to have less strike on my aquaculture oysters. I was wondering if there's any way for the commission to look into possibly leasing condemned waters again.
I mean, I can speak as the chair on that, since it's not on the agenda. I think, I like your question a lot, and I think it's a good one to ask. I'm sure the commission would love to hear. I believe it's best to start that conversation with Chief Kenyon and get it to SMAC, which we have some SMAC members here today.
Yes, sir.
That's where I would start with that and see what your luck is. And you, and Adam, if you could have SMAC provide us a report when they discuss that for the commission to look at and see what the viability is. As you know, in order to do, to change a regulation or something like that, it would have to be advertised, go through the process. Well, part of the process is we typically go through the committees and stuff like that. So I would start
Yes, sir.
there and see what their opinion is, but just make sure you get with Chief Kenyon before the day's out.
Okay. The other question, is that code or is that regulation where the commission can make that call?
It's reg. Yeah, it's reg.
It's reg? Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Speaker?
I don't know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You.
Mr. Sanford, I'm not sure this is a question for you, but I wanted to make a request, should this go before SMAC, that the Virginia Department of Health, Shellfish Safety also join that SMAC meeting, because there are some important
Yes,
things
sir.
to take into consideration with shellfish safety. Thank you.
Yes, there is, absolutely. Also, just to follow up on that, you're allowed to grow seed in condemned waters at this time, as long as it's not marketable. And I believe, I'm not sure about the time period, I'm sure you know, 60 days, is that correct? For 30 days, where you can have to let your seed sit for 30 days in clean water.
Purge.
Yes, purge. Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
there anyone else? Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Eric Holloway.
Proceed.
All right, I'm here today to get my waterman's card and my oyster license back. My wife was disabled and I had to be her caregiver for the last 11 or 12 years, and she died on April 11th. And now I'd like to go back to work and not have to wait the 2 years because I'm already 63. I don't know how many years I have.
Have you reached out to the Shellfish Division and talked to them and licensing as well? Or is this
I
the
had a
first?
friend that's trying to help me get my affairs straight since my wife died, and she said that she talked to somebody, and they said I had to come in front of the council to get my card back. I mean, I've only ever been a warden, I've never done anything else.
Well, the reason and that's correct. The reason I'm asking that question is if you could have went through the process, because I know, Chief Geary can tell you there's a lot of times, as far as the commercial card, the waiting list you're talking about is the commercial card, and we can waive that for medical exemptions and stuff like that. We didn't have to go through the board. Now, the other stuff would have had to been discussed at the level of the Shellfish Department to see when the last time you had one and stuff. Chief Kenyon, do you have that information?
I am frantically looking it up, but no, I don't have that information.
When was the last year you had your oyster license?
Well, whatever year you first came out with the $300 fee to oyster, that's the last year I had it. Now, I don't know how many years that's been because I'm not that great. I know it's been 10 or 12, somewhere in that ballpark.
Come on up, Chief Kenyon. If you have the information, it would be.
I don't have the information handy. It is definitely something I can work with Mr. Holloway and look up. Holloway, I'm sorry. If it's appropriate for us to be able to move through it as a staff, we can do that. And if it's the only option to appropriately move back through the commission, we can advise him either way. But
He hasn't been told no yet to go before the commission. I mean, the commission has authority here, but we don't know what he qualifies for to start with the commission.
I could give you my last 4 digits of my card.
We're not hearing that today.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to take your time up. I was just told that I had to come here.
The commission, unless the commission has any discussion or anything to add, I would say work with staff, and if something doesn't work out, then that's when you come before the commission. We'll know exactly. In the past, correct me if I'm wrong, we've had individuals that didn't have their user fee. They paid the years that they stopped buying it, so they back paid every year afterwards so far. Is that correct?
yeah, we've had a few different cases, whether it be medical exception or individuals who fail to pay for some other that this commission has allowed them to back pay. But those are all things that we can look up and work through and have available for this commission.
I mean, my wife's insurance did not, it didn't cover for home care, health care. And I was basically it. I mean, I wish she was still alive, but she's dead, and now I want to go back to work.
I understand. Is there any questions from the commission?
I do.
Ms. Edwards?
Is there a time frame of length that somebody can go back and renew it? That's just a general question.
In general, in order to qualify for the oyster user fee, you have to pay it in the previous year. That is a regulation promulgated by this commission, so they have the ability to make reasonable exceptions if they so choose.
It's basically, if you don't buy it, you lose it. Which the commission has been generous so far on ones that have forgotten to buy it and medical reasons and stuff like that. Any more questions? I would say work with staff and.
Okay, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Is there anyone else? No one else listed for public. Please come forward. Is there one in the back? We'll get you next. Guys, we're kind of going off script a little bit. If you want to speak, you got to sign up to speak, and you got to write your name, but we can read it. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, to help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Dave Bantos. I'm here to read a statement for representing the CCA, the Coastal Conservation Association. We have a petition for conserving hickory shad, which recently completed its public comment period. Our petition requested the VMRC replace unrestricted recreational harvest of hickory shad in Virginia's coastal rivers and tributaries with a managed recreational fishery. We previously brought our concerns about the risk posed by unrestricted recreational harvest to the board in March of 2019. The issue was referred to the VMRC staff for further development. We kept in contact with the staff while more pressing fishery management issues and then COVID-19 derailed things. And our staff brought our request to the Finfish Management Advisory Committee in March of this year. FMAC agreed with the conservation need and recommended a daily creel limit. Our request was scheduled for your May board meeting, but was pulled from the agenda. It subsequently became necessary to use the petition process in order to bring this conservation need to the board. Our petition received strong public support. All comments received were favorable, as stated by the James Rivers Association comment, quote, "Hickory shad are an essential migratory species, contributing significantly to the ecological health of our waterways, providing valued recreational fishing opportunities and associated economic impact. By transitioning from unrestricted harvest to regulated fishery, we can ensure that hickory and shad populations remain robust, sustaining not only species but the communities and ecosystems that depend upon it. Careful management is essential to ensuring that conservation gains are not jeopardized." All right, managed fishery informed by the best available data is a necessary step towards preserving this resource for future generations, while supporting ongoing shad and herring restoration efforts, while also providing recreational fishing opportunities. Our petition is tentatively scheduled for the board's consideration at the December meeting. We've provided supporting materials to the VMRC staff to assist with your review, and that's what we have, so thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. So you're not talking on something that's on this agenda, you can talk on something that's on December's agenda.
Yeah, we want to get on December's agenda.
Any questions for the speaker? Any questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank
you. Sir, please come. State your name for the record.
My name is Wesley Waters.
You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Proceed.
So, this is my first time at a commission meeting, but I just wanted to share my opinion with regards to the difference between commercial harvesting and recreational harvesting limits, size slots. So, I can think of a great example, striped bass. On commercial, they can keep the large striped bass, but recreational has a slot. I'd like to see unification on what the size minimum maximums are between recreational and commercial fishermen. Just keep it fair and even for everybody instead of saying, there are commercial guys, they can keep the large fish, but the recreational guys cannot. I mean, I'm fine with whatever your wisdom is with regards to the slots, but I'd like to keep them unified between recreational and commercial anglers.
Any questions for the speaker? Thank you. Thank you. My suggestion would be start with Fisheries Chief Gear. He's an expert at this. That's where your conversation should start at and your questions, and he can answer a whole lot of, and there's many, many reasons why that I'm not going to get into now of why it's the way it is. We're not the only body that regulates striped bass. So sometimes we fall in line with NOAA and National Marine Fisheries and also ASNFC. And I think, what is the commercial quota? It's about 9% of the coastwide quota, something like that? 9%? 9 or 10%?
I think Mr. Waters mentioned not striped bass as just an example, but you're talking about flounder, sea bass.
I'm talking all size limits as a whole.
I don't really, it doesn't matter. The fisheries chief is in charge of all of them, so I would start with him with your questions.
Okay.
And we use striped bass for an example. I'm gonna use that one for an example. It doesn't matter which species, start with him. He's got the answers, and he can tell you the process of FMAC, which is Finfish Management Advisory Committee. That's where you will start with your considerations and bring it up. It's the gentleman before you mentioned that about Hickory Shad. Bringing it, it's the best spot to start, and it goes through the rulemaking process and we get the public comment on it too as well. So, we thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak under public comment? All right, thank you. Adam, looks like you're up again.
This is a public hearing to amend Chapter 1250 pertaining to tagging of shellfish. This would be to modify the method of identifying harvested shellfish. And this is to align with the National Shellfish Sanitation Program's tagging requirements and will ultimately increase public safety and protect the shellfish resource and industry. The National Shellfish Sanitation Program is the federal cooperative program. It's recognized by USDA. Virginia is a member of that, as long as all other East Coast, Midwest, and West Coast and non-producer states. This essentially allows for the safe handling of shellfish as well as for the interstate commerce of shellfish between state lines. This is the program that promotes and improves the sanitation of shellfish to ensure the harvesting methods, the transportation methods, and the shipping methods are all uniform to really increase public safety and reduce health risks. Participants in this NSP include agencies from shellfish producing, including FDA, EPA, NOAA, and they every 4 years, they vote on updates to this NSSP. So the latest revision to the guide for molluscan shellfish introduces more detailed guidelines to show where shellfish was harvested from. They're identifying shellfish areas, enhancing traceability, which safeguards both the public and the industry against potential diseases. So the proposed amendments that you see in your packet today updates the information required on a shellfish tag. It will require that harvesters provide the most specific area in which they're harvesting shellfish. In this case, we do provide lease numbers and/or public harvest areas, which would be most specific areas. Currently on tags, they're only required to use harvest areas. So just to give you an idea of what that looks like, it's a little bit of a busy map here, but the current requirements is harvest area. So you can see an example like this in the James River. This blue line right here is a harvest area. So they're required to put that on their tag where they harvested, and if there's any kind of disease outbreak, they need to trace it back as far as they can. So currently they're required this harvest area right here. So we're shifting to growing areas, which is now required by the NSP. So you can see this large blue is really broken into at least 2 growing areas. So now we're getting more specific. And even more, you can see these individual leases in here so we can get even more specific. So there is an outbreak, rather than shutting down large areas, they can get very specific to where these were harvested. And this will increase public safety as well as protect the industry from any kind of large-scale shutdowns if there was an outbreak. This is a regulation that is not going to be in effect right away. The effective date on this regulation is January 1st. This allows for a large amount of time for education. I worked with the Law Enforcement Division as well as the Virginia Department of Health as that we will phase this in over time. The big take home is we're not losing any information. If people continue to fill out the tags the way they are, we're not losing any information. However, we do want to have at least 3 months in continued education to get more and more specific areas in which they're harvesting. So there are a lot of changes in this reg. I wanted to highlight the substantive one. You can see where we're requiring lease numbers now, and instead of harvest areas, we're changing that to growing areas. You're going to see a large number of other changes in the regulation in front of you. Those are non-substantive changes. For example, the Department of Shellfish Sanitation is now the Department of Waterborne Hazards. So we're updating language. Instead of shellfish, we are being more generalized and calling a lot of things shell stock so that we're all encompassing on everything. But those are non-substantive changes. So I wanted to bring this one to your eyes so you could see what is really changing on this. Staff is recommending the commission consider amendments to Chapter 1250 pertaining to tagging of shellfish. to modify the method of identifying harvested shellfish to align with the National Shellfish Sanitation Program's tagging requirements. And this would be to increase public safety and protect the shellfish resource and industry. And I'm happy to take any questions on this change.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Erskine?
Chief Kenyon, thank you. In some of those other changes, when it's shellfish changed to shell stock, is that a requirement on any labeling?
It is a requirement. There is a requirement on some of the labeling that instead of shellfish, they call it shell stock. But those are all tags that will be printed and distributed by VMRC. And as well as, that's why we're larging this large amount for education and to continue to work through. We're not losing information. We're trying to gain better information over time.
Right, as a follow-up, sir.
Yes, sir.
On some of what I guess I'm referring to is the gallons, gallon lids and gallon containers have printed advisories.
Correct.
And those advisories include the word shellfish. So are you suggesting in here that they would change to shell stock?
Yes, we have worked with the Virginia Department of Health to go through these NSP guidelines, and part of those changes is to update the language to be all-inclusive, which aligns with the NSSP. But those will be put in over time, and mostly this is for education and getting better compliance. This is not an I got you right away moment.
Yeah, so there's a lot of inventory. You're talking about doing this January 1, which is in the middle of the season. And there's a tremendous amount of inventory in the industry that's already been purchased with containers, cups, pints, quarts, gallons, all of that printed with shellfish, not shell stock.
Agreed. And this is something we've talked to law enforcement about, as well as the Virginia Department of Health. Their intent is not January 1 to flip the switch. Their intent is to educate, but because this is an education, it would be well-renowned as well to push this back to an effective date of February, March, April, whatever the industry feels even more would allow for that education. This is not something that needs to go in right away. It's something that we need to phase into over time. So though the suggested effective date is January 1, it could be pushed back if this commission feels that they need more time for education, but it's not a January 1 that all of a sudden the switch is flipped.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Headley?
Could we as a commission change the date in the motion
Absolutely.
to like give a year,
Absolutely.
a year time frame to like AJ said that there is a lot of stock already on hand with all of this on it, which would be a lot of money that somebody would have to throw away if we brought this to them all at one time.
Absolutely, and this is trying to get better information as we go along. Again, a large amount of education is required in this, so that date can be shifted. There is no deadline on the NSPSB that says it must be implemented by this day. It just requires us to get the most detailed information. So if we're phasing that in, this commission can choose to do that.
Mr. Headley?
One other question. Could you go back one slide, please, where it says lease number or public harvest area? I don't understand the difference of what we're doing now to what that would bring on, because on each ticket, we have to put the lease number or the harvest area on it.
Right now, you have to put the harvest area on it. The lease number is not required, although many people do put the lease number on there. Right now, harvest area is required, so getting more specific will protect the industry from large-scale shutdowns and increase public safety, increase health, increase traceability. That's what we're trying to get to. But yes, many people already conform with this.
Yeah, I will echo, I do understand the concerns of January 1, 2025, because technically you're forcing them to break the law. Ms. Gallo?
Just curious, instead of changing the date, since we really don't know what industry would possibly want as a date, should it just go back to SMAC? Should SMAC review this?
That's up to this commission.
Has this been reviewed by SMAC already?
It has not been reviewed by SMAC. I have reached out to buyers to allow it, and they've had no problem with putting in, as well as VDH has done the same. for comfortability, there's absolutely, we can slide this date back and or bring it to SMAC.
Any more questions? Mr. Hadley?
I don't have a question. I probably would put it more of a motion that we table this until after a SMAC meeting to get more information on it.
I mean, we absolutely could. Do you want to open it up to public comment first and see what input we have from anybody that may be here to speak on this first?
That's the right way to go, sure.
Anyone else? Any more comments? No? Thank you, Adam. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on this matter, the shellfish tagging item on our agenda? For or against? All right. That answers that question. Matters ultimately before the commission.
Motion to table this item until it has gone through the SMAC committee.
Got a motion to table until it goes through SMAC.
Can I add an amendment to that, that the time frame be also looked at? And I have to agree due to the expense of what it would cost.
Yeah, we would have to get a second it first, or he would have to accept the friendly
Okay.
amendment.
I will.
Accept it. So you want a time frame?
Yes, sir.
Any details you want to add to that?
26, for at least a year.
2026? All right, so I have a motion to table, and when they come back, send to SMAC for a time frame of approximately implementing this in 2026. Is that correct?
Correct.
I have a motion from Mr. Headley and a second it from Ms. Edwards. Any more discussion? Ms. Kellum?
I just want to state, I realize the importance and the health importance of what we're trying to accomplish. I just feel like maybe industry and all the experts at SMAC may have questions that we're not thinking of right now.
Understood. And this commission could also table the whole thing. They could accept part of these and table the rest of it too. That is also an option. Accepting the lease number as well as tabling specific language changes on containers and things like that. So.
Any more discussion?
I would like what just Adam just said. When you do take it to SMAC, could you point out all of those different of it as far as, do we have, if it goes to the word shell stock, do we have to stay in compliance with that, or can we keep shellfish? Things of that nature.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong here, Kelsey. I think sending it back to SMAC or sending it to SMAC, them things should be ironed out there. And there are quite a few experts on SMAC as well that will have the same questions. And you guys are more than able to get me your concerns, questions you have, and I'll make sure that they go to SMAC and we get that on the record. I don't necessarily know. There's no limit to what we can go over on this at SMAC as a body. They can look into it and make their suggestions. Mr. Erskine?
I'm not sure if we have a second yet.
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry. So in discussion, it's my understanding that the 2023 version of NSSP just actually recently came out, but we have very little flexibility in the actual lease number, harvest area of this growing area lease number language. That's an NSSP requirement, so the state is not out of compliance. We need to obviously comply with that part of this reg.
Yeah, so this is actually the NSP language that Commission Member Erskine is referring to. So they're looking for the most precise identification, including the growing area and lease number if available. So that's really, if you want to actually read the language, the state of Virginia does have the harvest area and a lease number available, so that's what what we're working to shift to.
Right, so in a follow-up, so there was a lot of discussion, and FDA had some heartburn about just going with something more general. They wanted to be specific, my understanding, but the shellfish to shell stock is not actually part of the NSSP. That could be discussed at SMAC, but we are required as a growing a location in the state that we have to comply with the NSSP. So when it goes back to SMAC, I think it's important that the committee understands this language must be adhered to, going forward, but the shellfish to shell stock is something that can be discussed along with some of the other things in the regulation. Thank you.
Mr. Hadley?
I see you, right there on number 1, it said you shall affix a tag to each container of shell stock. How does that go with our bulk tags we have?
Yeah, there's language referring to that as well, in the draft reg. But I would have to look that up specifically, how that pertains to it.
Adam, one question I have is, what happens if we table this to 2026?
We can work through that. We have the ability to work through that.
And when, do you know when the next SMAC meeting is?
Hopefully in January, but don't hold me to that.
Any more questions? So we have a motion that's been properly seconded to send to SMAC and give them a timeline of implementation date of January 2026 is the earliest.
Earliest.
Any further discussion on that? All right, put it for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, I think that's all for you, Pat, for Adam, isn't it? That's it? Yep, Pat, you got the floor.
When you started talking about hickory shad, I thought I fell asleep and missed the meeting.
I know, I was like, I think that's coming up on us.
Here we go. All right, it's still morning, so I will say good morning. I'd like to acknowledge that Dr. Ron Lifshitz is here from VIMS if we have any questions. I'd also like to acknowledge two of my staff who helped work on this these crab issues. They serve on the Chesapeake Bay Stock Assessment Committee with ROM. That's Alexa Galvin and Brooke Lohman, so I want to recognize them as well. Today, we're going to have a public hearing to amend Chapter 4 VAC 20-270-10 pertaining to blue crab fishery to close the 2024-2025 winter crab dredge fishery and consider an extension for the commercial crab pot fishing season. There's two issues here. I'm going to request that we do these separately. We're going to do the crab dredge first. I'll give them the presentation, we'll take questions, public comment, and then we'll do a vote, and then we'll move on to the crab pot extension, if that's okay with the board. Just so we can move through one, finish it, and move to the next one.
Any objections? No. No objections, proceed.
All right, thank you. Many of the slides you're going to see today, you saw last month because we did a request for a public hearing. I'm very grateful for the input that the board gave us last month and guidance on how to move forward, especially for the crab dredge fishery. So you're going to see a lot of the same slides again, so hopefully that will help refresh your memory and make the deliberations a little bit easier for all. According to the Code of Virginia, Section 28.2-707, the winter blue crab dredge season opens annually December 1st and closes March 31st, unless if the commission deems otherwise. In 2008, the commission voted to close the dredge season and repeal all relevant regulations at that time. That was because of a fishery disaster that we had. The commission has voted every year since to close the dredge season until this past year. So when we come before you in June with our crab regulations, that was one of the things we brought forth. It was Regulation 1140, and until this year, we always closed the season. This past June, the commission repealed Chapter 4 VAC 201140, which was the prohibition of crab dredging in Virginia waters. And so after that was repealed, we had no regulations for crab dredging. I mentioned that last month. So technically, if we don't have regulations, the fishery will open December 1st with no guides, no quota, no how many people participate, those kind of things. And I mentioned the 2008 fishery disaster. This was because of 14 years of low harvest and low abundance measured by the Baywide Blue Crab Winter Dredge Survey. As a result of that, NOAA Fisheries and the Secretary of Commerce declared the blue crab fishery a fishery resource disaster, and there was some disaster funds that came out as a result of that. And all the jurisdictions in the Bay, which was Virginia, Maryland, and Potomac River Fisheries Commission, were required to each take a 34% reduction in effort. Half of that reduction in Virginia was closing the dredge fishery. The rest of that reduction included, like I said, the closing of the winter dredge fishery, reducing individual pot limits, increasing cull rings, shortening the female harvest season, and increasing minimum size limit for peeler crabs. The reason why the crab dredge fishery was closed in 2008 was because of that disaster. And there was a very high ratio of females to males in this fishery compared to the other sectors of the fishery. Upwards of 90 to 95% of the catch are adult females that will be spawning that spring and summer. There's a high degree of waste. The dredge damages a lot of the crabs, so there's some incidental mortality. The value of the product is generally lower than the other gears, especially crab pots. Some of the processors were no longer interested in the product. It has a low participation relative to pots. It's probably 10% of what the pot fishermen are, so less than 100 people were doing it. There's a high overhead cost, and there was strong public opposition to having a dredge fishery. Some of these things can be mitigated, though, such as the high degree of waste. VIMS put out a study in 2013 that showed that if you dredging over sand and with devices called divers, which are put on the dredge, which make it dig in deeper, can have as much as a 29% mortality rate. But over mud, without the divers, the mortality rate is negligible. So you can, one of the recommendations would have been only fish over mud bottoms. There are some processors who have told us recently, yes, they would like to have a dredge fishery so that they can have a year-round market, because when the season closes, they lose their market and they have to get it back in the springtime. You've seen this graph dozens and dozens of times, but I'm going to keep on hitting it on y'all, so you'll get it. We manage right now by our adult female abundance from the winter dredge survey. These numbers on here for the target and the threshold are generated by the stock assessment. They're called biological reference points. So for the adult female abundance, we have two reference points. We have the threshold, which is the red, which is set at 72.5 million crabs right now. If we go below that, we are overfished or the stock is depleted. The green line is our target of 196 million female crabs. We go above that, the population is completely recovered, it's sustainable, everything's great. You can kind of see, you can kind of see that, from about 1994 through about 2008, that the abundance was relatively low, and there was some years that were overfished, and that's why the disaster was declared at that. And after we put in those implementations of the 34% reduction, you can see the increase we've seen, the increase almost immediately. We've only had 1 year since that we've been in an overfish status. There is some concern because we've seen some recent declines in the abundance, but we're bouncing around between that green and the red, which is okay. We obviously want to be, we'd like to be above the target, but it's okay to be in between those two values. So just to talk about some of the VMRC motions that we had, like I said, in June, we basically repealed Chapter 4 VAC 201140-10, which is our prohibition on crab dredging in Virginia waters, by a 5-4 vote. But there was also a motion to direct staff to start looking at a crab dredge regulation on how that would work. So we're calling it a framework. How, if we were going to have a crab fishery, how would it look like? The framework with, the season, the participants, what kind of gear, what would be the quota, would it be daily catch rates, all those things we have in our other fisheries. How we were going to do that. This past month, we did a motion for an advertising in October public hearing, and the board decided that what we were going to do was, since we didn't have a regulation, we were going to put any new crab dredge regulations in our existing 270, which is the pertaining to blue crabs, and that we would go ahead and basically close this upcoming season, the 2024, the 2025 crab dredge season, and look into extending the pot season. Okay. And that passed, so that's how we got here today. As a result of that meeting in June, we had 2 facilitated meetings with our Crab Management Advisory Committee. We had a professional moderator come in, and the first meeting was July 29th, and was pretty much to look at the issues and how we were going to address those. And then we came back in August, and we just started putting some things together, what we wanted to see. So there was a proposal to have a dredge season coming up, 2025, 24 through 25, based on the 2013 plan that we had before. It didn't get a lot of support. We had another one for opening the crab pot fishery year-round with no season closures and do not open the crab dredge. That didn't get a lot of support either. There was somebody put in that said, do not open the dredge fishery until after the stock assessment was done. There was some support for that, but not enough. But finally, the group came, not to consensus, but they came to a majority vote to combine these proposals. So they wanted to have a crab pot season in 2024 and extend this season right now to the end of December. And thereafter, the season would be March 1st through December 31st annually, and only open the dredge fishery after the stock assessment is done, and we will continue to do that framework so that when it does open, we have everything in place. That was the situation we were in, was we did away with all our crab dredge regulations, and we didn't have anything to say how it would be propagated in the future. So what we did in 270, Regulation 270, was we added a new section, Section 57, for the crab dredge fishery. And this is coming right out of the old 1140 that had the prohibition. And it says, in accordance with the provisions of Section 28.2-707 of the Code of Virginia, the crab dredging season of December 1, 2024 through March 31, 2025 is closed, and it shall be unlawful to use a dredge for catching crabs from the waters of the Commonwealth during this season. So as we develop this framework, we will add those items in here about number of participants, the quota, where they're allowed to fish, so that in the future, if you as a board decide you want to open the crab dredge fishery, we already have a map on how we're going to do it. So, and we'll continue to work with CMAQ on that. But for today, this was our task for today, to bring this forward to you. And so as far as the public comments, we received 5 letters in opposition from organizations opposing opening the crab dredge season. We received 8 online comments. We had 513 form letters, but they also combined that with the pot season extension. But 193 of those people said, thank you for not opening the crab dredge season. So, and VIMS has said under certain conditions they could support a crab dredge fishery. And so the staff recommendation today is recommends the commission amend Chapter 4 VAC 20-270-10 pertaining to blue crab fishery to close the 2024-2025 winter crab dredge fishery. And I can take any questions at this time.
Any questions for the speaker?
So this is based on just closing it, not pertaining to any 26 tests, anything?
This is to close the upcoming season.
Close the season.
And then we will go ahead and continue working with CMAP to develop a framework so that we have everything in place if they want to open it in the future, everything we need to do. So the way the regulation will look, it's almost like this is the light switch. where if you want to turn on, if you want to have the dredge season open, you turn it on, and it will be slightly modified. And then the framework will go in the regulation as well, will tell us how that fishery will be conducted. Okay?
When is the study completed on the, was it 25, 26?
Stock assessment?
Yes.
Is due out in 2016. 2016, 2026. I wish it was 2016.
I know, it's
Boy,
going by fast. It is going by very fast.
I'd be a lot happier man if it was 2016.
Well, the stock assessment just says they will assess a stock assessment when he comes out in 26. It doesn't say acceptable. I mean, because the stock assessment could be negative and.
If the stock assessment comes down and it's poor, we'll probably have to take management action, other management actions, so. But it all depends on what the results of that. But the idea behind it is like, when you're going through a new stock assessment biologists oftentimes will say, it's not a good time to be making major changes to your fishery.
Mr.
Chief Gear, so this recommendation would be for 2024, 25 only, and then the commission will have to vote for 25, 26.
Yes, we do not have the authority to close it permanently.
Right.
So we've done that for years. We've had to every year bring it before the commission.
Revert
So
to that
just-
where there's a
right.
decision every year. Thank
And
you.
all we did was we had a specific regulation in the past, now we're just putting it in another regulation.
Okay, thank you.
Should we do it till 26 when the stock assessment comes out?
You can't.
Basically, we just,
No.
we can't.
We can only do it 1 year at a time.
Okay.
Let me clarify. There was a case, a court case. We can only close it for the season. We have to hear it every year by the judgment of the court. So, that's why it's there. That's why it wasn't permanently repealed to start with. So, this is streamlining it, putting it back in a crab regulation.
Okay.
Ms. Edwards?
What is a recommendation for extending, I think, a slide back, starting, okay.
We're gonna do them separately.
This is just for
This
the
is crab
drudgery.
dredging.
Okay.
It's easier to do one at a time. It gets very.
I think we'd get wrapped around the axle if we
So,
tried to do them both at the same time.
And I'm gonna give a shout out to Christina in a minute, but we had a facilitator for the CMAC meetings because it can get really complex and complicated when you start intertwining the two. Any more questions? Thank you, Pat. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes, do you have to sign up for this? Okay. Anyone else? That's it?
Yeah.
All right, so we're back. Now, you know better. I know you know better. I know you know.
Sorry.
State your name for the record.
Chris Moore, Chesapeake Bay
You
Foundation.
swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but truth, so help you
Yeah.
God?
Thank you.
Proceed, Chris.
Thank you all very much. I just wanted to highlight again the work that was put together by the Crab Management Advisory Committee over the summertime. I want to thank the commissioner for pulling that group together and providing the resources necessary to have a facilitator there. Like I say, it was a little unfortunate how we ended up in terms of the way we operated, but we really came to a good decision, I think, and gave you all the most informed decision. As you'll remember, we kind of changed our course from when we met back in May to having those two different meetings with those two different discussions, realized there were going to be really significant impacts to the crab industry throughout the Commonwealth by putting a winter dredge fishery in place for this year. And that committee came together and said, you know what, it's not the right time to do this. Plus, we need to get the results of that stock assessment in place to figure out what changes we may need to make for the fishery as a whole. So I want to thank the committee, the commissioner, and the staff for working so hard to getting that informed decision. And I think that's why you have the recommendation to keep it closed for the upcoming year. And I hope you'll continue to do that today. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Moore? I was hoping to hold you up here a little while. Is there anyone else on that? That's it. Okay, that being said, matters before the commission.
I'll make a motion to accept the staff's recommendation.
All right, so I got Mr. White, I'm gonna take your motion to accept staff recommendations.
Second.
I got a second for Mr. Bransom. Further discussion? Any further discussion? That being said, I have a motion to accept staff recommendation of closure of the 2024-2025 winter crab dredge fishery. Although it's been properly seconded, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Let the record reflect, it passed 6-1, Mr. Headley in opposition.
Okay, as Mr. Moore said, that, you know, our initial mission with the advisory committee was to look at the dredge fishery, but as it became apparent that there were some obstacles to overcome, they decided, you know, we started, and that, one of our goals was to look at the extending the pod season, but that kind of took a back burner, but when we saw that we weren't going to be able to do with dredge fishery this year, they put some more effort into that. And that's the next issue, the extension of the crab pot season. As I said, the CMAQ recommended extending the crab pot season in 2024 for the rest of this year. So right now, it's scheduled to close on the 16th of December. I mistakenly said the 20th at the last meeting, so I want to correct that. So one of my staff sent me a text message immediately. Like,
I thought I was right on that one.
yeah, I didn't see it right away, and she was all over it. I have to give her kudos to that. And then I said it will close the 16th unless we modify it today, and we'll open on the 17th. I'm going to first talk about extending it into December, is what we're going to talk about first. Typically, the season generally runs from March 17th to November 30th. We have extended it in the past into December for a number of reasons. We did it during COVID. We did it because we had bad weather and people weren't fishing. We did it mostly for economic reasons for the most part. Or one year we did it because the abundance was very good, and so we extended the season into December. You can see here it shows when the season closed. You can see when that closed. It was usually 15 days for the most part, as much as 20 days. You can see the harvest, and next to that is what that extension, what percent of the annual harvest it was, and the number of participants, the harvesters and number of trips. So the harvest is less than 4% of all the harvesters are actually taking advantage of this, and it's less than 1% of our annual harvest. So, but we know that a lot of the crabbers come around, end of November, they're gearing up to go oystering, so a lot of people get out. But we are seeing some warming water temperatures, and in some areas, this will give an opportunity for folks to go and continue to crab if they want. With only, we don't think it's going to be a major, increase in annual harvest. So, and you can kind of see the left is showing the harvest from beginning of November to the end of December, till December, when these seasons were open, those 5 seasons. And you can kind of see they all kind of have the same track. There might be a little bit higher some years than others, but they're all pretty much going in the same trend, where November we have high harvest, we have high, the right is the number of participants in the fishery, and as the season moves on, less and less of those. And that's, so they're pretty much tracking each other fairly well. Okay. Moving on to the extension for the spring season, which typically begins March 17th. We've only opened earlier in March. We opened on March 1st once, and as a result of a winter dredge survey that showed very high abundance, so they extended the season to December, and they opened the season earlier in March of 2017. However, the next year, the juvenile abundance on the dredge survey was lower, so they went back to the normal March 17th to November 30th. So they had it open for 16 extra days, and that harvest was about 459,000 pounds. So it's about 41% of the harvest for that month. The harvest in March is extremely variable. I'll show you the next graph, you'll see that. And it's all driven by temperature. If we have warm temperatures in March, we're going to have higher harvest. If we have lower temperatures, it's going to be low catch. And that's what you can see in this graph. They really, the harvest really isn't showing anything. They're all over the place. So from late March to early April, we're just seeing that the numbers are all over the place, because it's driven, our March harvest is driven by water temperature. And, and we are seeing, when we did have that March, we did have much higher participation. About 28% of the fishermen did fish during that early time period. So we only had that 1 year. So with the December, we felt pretty comfortable having 5 years of data that we said, yeah, we feel pretty comfortable that we can do this extension. But since we only had that 1 month in March, we decided to say, let's look at water temperature over a number of years, average water temperature, and see how harvest was affected by that. So on the x-axis, you see water temperature. And temperatures, crabs stop feeding at about 48 degrees Fahrenheit. So if they're not feeding, they're not going to be attracted to a bait well, and they're not going to go into a pot. So you could see below that 48 degrees, the harvest was very low in those years. But as those temperatures increase, you see that the harvest increased. In 2012, the water temperatures were record high water temperatures, and they had very high harvest in March. So we can't control water temperature. We don't know what water temperature is going to be like next March in that regard. So that's pretty hard to decide. Typically, March averages between, show you how variable it is, between 0.2% and 10.9% of our annual harvest. Now that might not sound like too much, but almost every other month after that, it's consistent. You can look at almost every year, it's consistently 8 to 12% almost every month until you get to December. So December and March are those transition months that, are the fishery starting to close down and March starting to start up. In summary, the CMAQ recommended we extend the crab pot season in lieu of opening the winter dredge. We have limited data available to what the potential impact is going to be for this. We do have some past fisheries performance suggesting the minimum impact overall harvest resulting from the December extension. I feel it fairly confident for 5 years, none of those years that additional harvest was more than 1%. We don't think it's going to be much more than that. However, we are concerned about March. We just don't know what that increased harvest is going to be. We know what will probably happen is Maryland folks will come down earlier, and so they'll be fishing in our, because they don't open until April.
1st of April.
Huh?
April 1st.
Yeah, so that gives them an extra 2 weeks down here. So there are some implications opening earlier. It's unclear, and it's all driven by environmental factors. If we had the authority and to do things very quickly, we could basically, we see the water temperature is going to be that warm and we can open up, but we can't do things that quickly. As far as public comment related to the extension, we received a letter from the Chesapeake Bay Foundation and those 513 form letters that were opposed to it. So mostly saying that we've already extended the time of day, the population isn't as high as it should be, so that's what most of those letters said. We're proposing 3 options for you to consider. Instead of, we have a staff recommendation, but because I respect with the CMAQ, their recommendation, it's a good recommendation. We just have a little bit of concern with that March 1st date. So the status quo would be remains the same. We close December 16th this year and we open March 17th next year. The staff recommendation is we close December 31st, so we extend to the end of this year, and then we open on March 17th. And the CMAQ recommendation is we close the season this year, the 31st, and we open March 1st of next year. So they're getting that earlier open season. So, and like I said, the staff's recommendation is primarily because of the uncertainty. And, I would respect the board's decision on whatever you decide to do. It's kind of like, we're not really married to any one of these, but we feel that, if the board wants to go with the CMAQ recommendation, or whichever one, it's up to you. You have 3 choices. So I can take any questions at this time.
Any questions for Pat? You answered everybody's question. That's pretty.
They're all tired and hungry is what it is.
Right? That's right. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Let's go.
Question for Rom.
Well, let's, yeah, come on up, Ron.
Is that okay?
Thanks, Commissioner. Rom Lipsius.
You swear to tell the whole truth, number, true help you God?
I do.
State your name for the record, please.
Rom Lipsius, Virginia Institute of Marine Science. Aye.
Looking at the March 1st opening or possibility of one, my question is, the females that would be caught in the crab judge fishery over the winter, if it were to open, are they the same females that would be caught in a March 1st opening?
Yes, and just to add a little bit to that is, I would say probably 80 to 85% of those females have never spawned. That's going to be their first spawning season. And one thing that wasn't mentioned, but VIMS supports the staff recommendation. That is, we are in agreement with leaving the March as it is.
So if that were to happen, they'd be catching this exact same females that the crab dredge fishery.
Yes, yes, they would. And as Sagir said, is the temperatures have been increasing over the last, say, 5-6 years, longer than that, but particularly in the last 5 years, they've all been higher. And so the expectation is that it's likely to be there this year, and therefore that you would have an increased harvest. And if many of those are females, then taking away from the spawning stock.
So, wait a minute, I'm gonna ask you,
Ms. Edwards had her hand raised.
oh, sorry, excuse me, I didn't see you.
I do have a question for you. Hearing from the watermen on the seaside on the eastern shore, their recommendation is to try to open March 1st because they miss that first drove of crabs that are going through there. What is your thought with that? Where would, by March 17th, they can be gone, especially with the temperatures getting warmer. What is your thought there?
So one of the things is that the seaside, some of the work we've been doing recently, there hasn't been a lot of work done that includes the seaside. Just they have to follow the main stem regulations. And so their population is dependent primarily on the Chesapeake Bay, the main stem population. So one potential alternative, but it can't be voted on today, would be to examine that in lieu of the fact, or because of the fact that they do have typically warmer temperatures and they're dependent mainly on the main stem spawning stock. So unfortunately at this point, we don't have much information to go on as far as the seaside is concerned.
Mr. Wade?
So, the females really release their eggs more in the spring. I mean, they don't do the December. So to me, the December date is not as important as the March date because there are more females releasing their eggs in March certainly than in December. Would that be fair?
Yeah, the caveat with that is that the females that are down there in December, that are being caught in December, are again largely those that have never reproduced. It includes a major cohort that comes down in the fall from Maryland. Most of the females from Maryland are coming down in the fall. And so then they're ending up in Virginia waters. And so when you combine that with the fact that it's really, it's highly unlikely that they're gonna suffer natural mortality, like being eaten by something else, unless there's a severe winter freeze, but those have gotten few and far between now with global warming. So those females are, I would say they're largely the same as those that you would catch in the early spring. So in fact, you are going to be taking away from the stock. However, if the catch is spread out, and because, as Sagir said, that it's a fairly low percentage, then in that case, we're not opposed to that. But those are the same, it's the same females. They're going to survive and spawn the following year.
Any more questions? Mr. Rowan? Mr. Lipschitz? No? Thank you, Ron. All right, well, I'll open it up to public comment one more time.
Oh, okay.
Is there anyone else in the audience who wants to speak on this before I move on? Please, come on, Mr. Sanford. Please state your name for the record, please.
Mark Sanford. I'm seeing y'all way too much today. Anyway, I am in favor of the March 1st opening. Basically, I've been doing this a long time, and what I see is deep water is where most of the crabs are bedding down. And we're not going in deep water. I don't know if Mr. Lipschitz has the chart of where the crabs actually bed down, but it's mostly the center of the bay. People don't work there until April 1st. You're talking mostly seaside, is where you're gonna go to catch the crabs, or you're gonna go down in the lower bay and up in like Lynnhaven River. Those two areas. The reason why the guys on Seaside can't sell their crabs is because it's honestly a small crab. Most people don't want them, and they lose out on the market totally. I know 3 years ago, they were not even allowed to, no buyer would take their crabs come March 17th because you had such a good bay crab. They're losing out. Also, if you put a date on the crab fishery, buyers automatically know. Case in point, North Carolina last year was paying $150 to $120 a bushel. Virginia opened, the price went right down to $80 is what the buyers tried to pay us. You put a hard date on anything, they're going to drop the price. At least March 1st, there's not that many crabs on the market. You're not going to have a problem selling your crabs. It's going to be very few crabbers crabbing, you know. And, you know, we seem to have a problem with data for March 1st. I think it would be a very good idea to open it up just so you do get that data. You know, we're talking about compensation and stuff like that. I mean, the smartest thing to do, honestly, the crab sanctuary, it runs basically from the North Carolina line to the Maryland line in the Upper Bay. Change your dates. If you don't want us to catch the crabs that are bedding down, close the Deepwater Sanctuary, change the dates. Change it from March 17th till April 15th, whatever it needs to compensate for what you think you're going to catch, you know. And as far as the Marylanders go, they go to deep water and they catch that crab, and they usually don't go until April 1st. That's when they go. And, you know, they might set sooner, but they don't catch anything. Your large catches are not going to be in where the crabs are bedding down, where the spawning crabs that we're trying to protect. You know, I'm crabbing to make money, and honestly, you know, if you close it down for me June 1st for 2 weeks, it would not bother me because I don't make my money then. I make it beginning of the year and the December 31st. I'll make more money then than I will in June because of the price. I catch very few crabs compared to what I have to catch come in June to make the same amount. You know, I'd rather catch less for more.
There are any questions, Mr. Sample? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Bill, next speaker. Mr. Moore.
I'll get straight next time, I promise.
State your name. That's all right. We know you're a staple in this room.
Chris Moore, Chesapeake Bay Foundation. I would like you all to support status quo option one, and here's the reason for that. One, I think we had a really good discussion, like I say, back over the summertime, and I think that would be helpful to informing future decisions about the crab fishery as a whole. When you all set the seasons for this year back in June, you all did it with the best available data, and we weren't contemplating any of these changes. The only reason we're contemplating these changes is due to the winter dredge fishery discussion. What I would really like to see is us come back as CMAQ and look at the season as a whole. By doing these small extensions here and there, we're kind of piecemealing our management plan together instead of thinking about a year-long comprehensive management plan for blue crabs. As you all remember, some of you admittedly weren't here back in June, we added new hours to our crab dredge fishery. So watermen will actually be catching or have the ability to catch more crabs because the day is longer. In addition, one of the things that was brought up during those discussions about the longer hours is a lot of the part-timers who jump in and out of the fishery based upon if the price is high or not are going to be able to jump into the fishery now as a result of those hours being longer. So we possibly, I won't say we will, but we possibly could see a lot higher harvest this year because of those extended hours than we were anticipating. Again, we won't know until we get the harvest data in, but with a winter dredge survey that showed us 20 million crabs, adult females, less in the population this past year than we'd had, a season extension that we've already given, plus those extra hours that we've already provided watermen, I think it would be, against a cautious management program to give these extensions both in December and in March when, as the data spells out, if the water temps are warm, we're headed, looks like, for a warm winter this year based on what water temps are now. We could have significant catches that we really weren't anticipating, and would be much higher than we'd hope to, especially given the current state of the blue crab population. So again, I think we should hopefully come back over the winter time, look at the season as a whole, try to make that decision in June like you have in the past and stick with it instead of continue to kind of piecemeal this in the future. And again, I think those discussions are very fruitful, and I'm glad we've had the extra resources to have those longer discussions at CMAC. So thank you very much.
Is there any questions for Mr. Moore? Thank you,
All
sir.
right, thank you.
Is that it? All right. That being said, we got 3 options up there listed, matters before the commission. Ms. Callum?
I have a question. Mr. Gear. We were originally discussing the crab dredge fishery, and there were conservation measures put in place if we were to go in that direction. So now, we've got that behind us, but we're looking at crab pot extensions, but no mention of any conservation measures.
Okay, I talked to, 2 things. We very often tweak our crab pot season. We've done it, we do that almost every year. And I reached out to the NOAA Chesapeake Bay office about that and said, would we be required to do conservation equivalency? And I explained exactly what we had. It said, looks like 1% December, looks like it might be, we're really uncertain in March. It could be anywhere from 0.2 to 10%. So they had some concern with March, but they weren't certain if there would be a need to do conservation equivalency. So I think because of the agreement that was created in 2008, where we basically cut 34%, and half of that was the dredge fishery. They took a hard stand on that said if you bring that back, you're going to have to do conservation equivalency. With the pot season, like I said, if you look over time, we've tweaked ours. Potomac River Fisheries tweaks it from year to year depending on the conditions. So it doesn't. The long answer to a short question, probably not. No, we won't have to do conservation equivalency.
Chief Gear, Chris Moore brought up a very valid point that I just overlooked, is the extended hours we did from now 3 a.m. to 5 p.m. for the entire state.
Mm-hmm.
How does that factor into the equation? And we made a change, and it could be significant or it could be not. You won't know until you get your data in.
Yeah, I think Mr. Moore made a very good point. I think, part-timers who have a full-time job and get off at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon will have time to go crabbing where in the past they may not have been able to. So I think that's a real possibility, where they can work their full-time job and still get out of the water and do some crabbing.
A higher level of effort, perhaps.
Ms. Edwards?
I don't have a question. I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, I guess we're there. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept option 3, CMAC's recommendation.
Motion to accept option 3, which is December 31st to March 1st. Do I have a second? Need a second to discuss. We have a second.
I'll second it.
Got a second from Mr. Erskine. Got a motion for option 3, December 31st to March 1st from Ms. Edwards, seconded by Mr. Erskine. Further discussion.
Discussion.
Mr. Headley.
This is a two-way street from me because I am a big crab potter and I was a big crab dredger. And option 3 itself is going to put potentially 600,000 more pounds of crabs to our total with no bushel reductions when they had 3 options for crab dredging, the lowest one being 800,000 pounds, and we still had severe bushel reductions. So I can't get on board with that. I just don't think what's good for the goose is not good for the gander in this situation.
Mr. Erskine.
Chief Gear, so in the presentation that you had, the last CMAC meeting was a vote of 8 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
And it included a combination, I know, of the dredge, which we've dealt with, but now we're onto this. What was some of the concern at CMAC for option 3?
For option 3,
You know, the
I
eight
think,
members that
you know,
voted
Chris
against it.
Moore summed it up pretty well. Some people were concerned about, you know, adding more on. Some people didn't want to do it because let's wait till the stock assessment comes out. As Mr. Moore said, we're kind of piecemealing this together. And so some folks felt that it would be better off, you know, holding off, doing status quo and doing it. I think that's primarily why folks were opposed to it.
As a follow-up, sir? So I guess what I was getting at, was there more comment about the December extension or the March extension?
There wasn't, refresh me if I'm wrong, I mean, Mr. Headley, I don't remember much conversation in December at all.
No, it was more, the ones that voted in favor more wanted the March 1st. But then, like I said, with the 600,000 pound possibly coming into the fishery, if I remember correctly, it was 459,000 pounds on the one March 1st opening we had.
That was the 1 year when it opened.
And we're looking, it might go back a couple slides, but we were looking around 150,000 pounds for the December extension, which would put us 600,000 pounds or so.
That's what it was in 2017 when we had high abundance recorded in the winter dredge fishery. But if you look at this graph, where's 217 on this? It's in the middle of there, so it's, you know, the water temperatures were a little bit above normal. Not much, but a little bit above normal.
Sir, the reason I ask is because the options did not include a December 1st closing with a March 17th opening.
Can you say that one more time?
Because the options that were proposed here did not include a December 1 closure and a March 17 opening. That's the reason I was asking, what kind of discussion did you have at CMAC where there's a concern about the December or the
Yeah,
March?
yeah,
Which clearly it's
okay.
about the March.
Yeah,
you
the
know,
issue
opening.
was mostly with March.
Yeah, because we had already, December, we had already voted for the December 16th season.
Okay.
Before the other two CMAC meetings.
Yeah, and I think part of it is because we have information in December that when we showed it, everyone kind of felt comfortable with it. March is so variable. The temperatures, you know, we may be at 40 degrees in March, you know, but we may be at 58. You just don't, you know, it's highly variable. So, and I think that's the uncertainty of that. That's why the staff felt a little reluctant.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Branson?
Chief, the winter dredge survey that's done, when is it typically conducted? February, March, January?
It's December through March, right? Yeah, so we won't have the information.
Yeah, we'll have it in May.
We'll have it in May.
And it would possibly reflect any harvest or impact done in December, but certainly not an earlier opening season in March 1st.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that concerns me. Both the extending it till December 31st, not so much, but opening up March 1st, that would give me concern and why I wouldn't support that.
I have just a comment, more or less. I just have a hard time, I'm in the same boat with Mr. Headley, where we say no to one fishery and then we want to expand another with obviously an increased catch that comes along with that. And with lack of data, because we're waiting on a stock assessment to come before we consider that dredge fishery, we're now extending, potentially, you know, option on the table to extend. I almost feel on one side of me, I don't want to talk out of both sides of my neck, right? I voted in favor not for the dredge fishery to be closed for this year. I'd hate to even consider any kind of extension on either end of it, because I feel like I'd be talking out of both sides. Just my opinion, I like option one, and I'm a crab potter myself. It's hard to argue data that you guys currently have, and I do agree or understand that you guys have considered data too as well with your recommendation, which I appreciate for sure, but I just hate to be able to someone consider the vote out of at least my chair, not that I'm only one, saying you voted opposed, you opposed to one, but you voted for one, another. It's hard to digest there.
Part of it was, somebody asked me what some of the comments the CMAC members had, and there were a couple of folks that said many more people will benefit from a longer pot season than the dredge fishery.
Yeah, and the crab itself will determine the length of the season to an extent because of temperature. And you allow Mother Nature to determine when she'll be caught, and she being the female crab. But at some point, it's hard to. We start talking about amount of poundage, as Mr. Headley pointed out. I would love it, but then on the flip side, I have to be a good steward too as well.
Not that I want to change our administrative process, but some states have proclamation authority where they can get the information and literally within a few days, be able to make a decision.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to do that.
No,
I mean,
understood.
ideally, that's what we would need for March, where it's like, we're seeing those water temperatures higher. The VIMS trawl survey and the dredge survey is seeing things and say, okay, and we can act accordingly. But we don't have that authority.
Just an observation, Chief, and tell me if I'm off the mark here, is that if you see a significant harvest in the later part of December and you opened in March, later on in the year, that might fabricate itself into bushel limits or either earlier season closure.
It all depends on what the dredge survey comes out with.
Data that you won't have until May. So,
I mean, like I said, we tweak it we tweak those
we've
things
already
every year.
extended the hours they can harvest, and now if we extend the seasons on either end or both, you run the risk of affecting everybody who's a pot fisherman with the bushel limits reductions later in the season or an earlier closure.
Well, that being said, I have a motion from March 1st to December 31st.
No idea, status
Ms.
quo.
Edwards, and properly seconded by Erskine. I am going to put that to a vote, and do I have another motion, or if not?
I would like to make a motion myself, for the remain status quo to go with option one.
It has to be a substitute.
Robert's rules, sir?
Yes.
We need a substitute motion.
And I'll second it.
Well, let's see what the motion is first. You still got a substitute. I mean, I get what you're saying, but the last motion is the first one you vote on, so.
Correct.
Anyways, but substitute motion is
Substitute motion, Mr. Commissioner, for option one.
option one, status quo.
Yes, sir.
And I have already got a second from Mr. White. So, all right, option one has been substituted for the original motion for option three, and it's been properly seconded. Discussion. So we're on option one now. Is the last motion made? Last proper motion made has been properly seconded. Mr. Erskine?
I just want to make a comment, no question really, that I've seconded the previous motion for discussion and have learned quite a bit, certainly from Mr. Moore's comments, that we've extended hours, and I appreciate where the other members of the board are as far as, voting against a crab dredge fishery and then looking to extend something else. So I'm in favor of option one.
Which one?
Yes, sir.
So have that comment. Any further discussion before I put this last motion, the substitute motion, which is option one, for a vote? All right, I'm gonna do a show of hands. All those in favor, raise your hand.
Is this option one?
Option one is the last one. You gotta vote your last option first. That is Ms. Kellum, Mr. Erskine, Mr. Branson, Mr. Headley, Mr. Thomas, Mr. White. Vote for option one, status quo, substitute motion. All those opposed, let the record reflect Ms. Edwards opposed. Motion carries, status quo, option one, December 16th to December 17th, 6-1. March 17th to 6-1.
Commissioner, I've taken way too much Robert's rules, and I'm gonna, now that becomes the main motion.
Yes, I got you. So now we have this motion on the floor for further discussion. Any further discussion on this now that this is the motion? No further discussion? Now that option one is the motion. All those in favor, raise your hand. Let's record reflect. Ms. Kellum, Mr. Erskine, Mr. Branson, Mr. Headley, Mr. Thomas, and Mr. White. All those opposed? Ms. Edwards. Motion carries 6-1. Option one.
Just to let you know, I mean, Dr. Lipschitz was right. We're seeing warmer and warmer temperatures every week, especially on this transition month. So we may be back here again in a couple of years.
So, I want to take this moment I want to thank Ron Lipschitz. He's been really amazing to work with. He's done a lot of work for us, and he made himself available around his vacation times and stuff. I really do appreciate it. I really appreciate the education you gave us and working with the committee on this. I want to send a shout out to the committee members, the two chairs. Chris Moore sat in the chair for one of these meetings, and Ed Tankert is the chair, and sat in the second one. You guys did great work. Remember, back in May, it was voted by CMAC to revisit this, and in June, we voted to revisit it. Everybody's hair caught on fire. And we revisited it, and we hired Miss Weaver, Christina Weaver, who was an amazing facilitator for this. She did Menhaden Work Group as well. I want to give a shout out to her, Christina Weaver. If you're out there and you hear us, we really do appreciate you. We think you did amazing work. It wasn't easy. I know the second meeting probably was a little tough, but it's okay. It's never easy when you do something like this, and we appreciate you and every person that serves on CMAC as well, along with Alexa Galvin and Brooke Lohman and Pat Gear. You guys did amazing work on this. This is how we probably should visit everything we do and make sure we evaluate, people be heard. The old way of just not giving people a voice is not cool. Everybody gets to be heard at least once every 10 years, right? That being said, I appreciate you all, and I got to give shout out to one last person on this. Rachel Peabody, you did amazing work. You organized this, and you had everybody in the world hating on you. I really do appreciate what you're doing. Rachel's leaving us. This is, I guess, maybe her last meeting, I guess, but we're going to miss you. I'm going to miss you. You know, you've been a very important part of my role here as commissioner. Thank you. We would have never herded all the cats for this if it wasn't for you. So you should be proud of what you did here. That being said, if there's no further business, the meeting is adjourned. The next commission meeting will be the November and December meeting merged together to be held on Tuesday, December the 3rd, 2024. Thank you, Kelsey.